The heroine shouts, demanding the boy return her belongings. He says the owner sold him the sword directly. He suggests settling it with the owner instead. She chases after him, climbing boxes despite exhaustion. She realizes he's cornered with nowhere left to run. She grabs him, promising peace if he behaves. Suddenly, he steals her cloak and leaps away. She's shocked by his inhuman jumping ability. He mocks her, saying she'll never catch him. Confused, she panics, then remembers something important. She reaches into her bag for a monster trap ball. Inspired by cartoons, she's never used it before. She throws the ball, declaring he won't escape. The boy yells, calling her actions childish nonsense. Suddenly, he's trapped inside the sphere. She tells him to surrender, but he refuses. She demands the sword and promises freedom. Calmly, she says he must escape first. Threatened, he finally hands over the sword. She happily retrieves it and asks the price. He breaks the trap and tells her off. She realizes everything still went smoothly. After he leaves, she questions her actions. She removes her mask, grateful for the magic cloak. Her name is Shirena Uis, Baron Uis's daughter. She opens the Ojagyo escape plan checklist. The sword objective is finally crossed off. Someone calls her, surprising her with time passing. She answers, ready to move forward. Later, she arrives at Ogren Academy. A voice reassures that everything is fine. Harun West recalls Shirena from childhood. Hestia Flauta defends Shirena's cuteness. Shirena jokes about smiling for a map drawing. Harun points them toward the caretaker. He congratulates her and leaves. The caretaker explains the entrance ceremony schedule. Asked her choice, Shirena says fencing. Hestia doubts fencing's popularity. Shirena insists points matter, not opinions. Hestia suggests choosing the same activity. Shirena notices the Academy's black dragon symbol. A grand fountain confirms its prestige. Perfect teachers mean a safer future. The entrance ceremony officially begins. Hestia suggests front seats. Shirena refuses. She plans to nap through the speech. Haley Ordeens is announced. She realizes he's the crown prince. Seeing him, she's completely shocked. Students with completed tasks may leave. Whispers spread about the prince's appearance. Students mention intense competition among boys. Others gossip about a marquis's daughter. A student notices Shirena. He calls the pink-haired girl angelic. The boys panic after eye contact. Hestia asks if Shirena is scared. Shirena hopes he isn't the prince. He also chose fencing, ruining her mood. Hestia asks what she's mumbling about. She asks where her room is. Hestia teases her about liking the prince. Shirena denies it, mentioning shared classes. Hestia jokes about fencing boys and friendships. Shirena reminds her they're best friends. Hestia promises not to be forgotten. Shirena heads off to unpack. She thinks her friend is ridiculous. She finds her room with a nameplate. Her neighbor is third-year Hazel Minage. She hopes the neighbor is kind. Inside, she's asked if she's Shirena. Hazel reveals herself as club leader. Hazel explains they'll share the room. Shirena apologizes for her mood. Hazel compliments her appearance. Hazel asks about her gloomy expression. Shirena realizes Hazel is actually nice. Hearing fencing. Hazel freezes. Hazel asks her to repeat it. Hazel panics about sword fighting. She worries about Shirena's marriage prospects. Shirena says she'll rely on herself. Hazel admires her independence and suggests friendship. Shirena notes mixed reactions from others. Some admire her, others don't. Hazel offers help unpacking. Shirena reflects on rare working women. She recalls a strange dream. A memory of her past life returns. She was Hanyena in another world. Following the story leads to ruin. Bankruptcy and forced marriage await her. Hestia is tied to that fate. Financial independence becomes her goal. She studies the plot to avoid danger. This time, she chooses a new path. She sees scenes from the original story. A man claims she belongs only to him. Hestia begged him to stop and not do this. At that moment, the protagonist jumps out of bed in horror and screams. The neighbor asks worriedly if everything is okay, because it looks like she had a nightmare. Shirena replies that yes, that's probably true. In fact, the dream was truly terrible. Now the main character understands everything completely. That's why the prince's name caused her such tension. Sometime later, the girl is sitting in class. The teacher explains that dragons are considered a legend, but the horde plays an important role in the kingdom. According to the legend of the country's founding, the first emperor defeated a black dragon. That's why he became the Academy's symbol. At this point, the protagonist stops listening and remembers the nightmare again. Lady didn't expect Haley to be so obsessed. She recalls their first meeting, and his words about her not catching his eye again, otherwise he will not let her go. Even though no one knew him, he left a disgusting first impression. It was too reminiscent of her past life, and the girl wondered why she had done all this at all. Hestia asks if something is bothering Shirena. She replies that she's just still sleepy. After the lesson ends, the main character begins to hide everywhere. In the dining hall, Hestia notices her friend's strange behavior and asks if she's avoiding someone. Sharena is surprised and pretends not to understand. Hestia says the lady is constantly looking back and hiding. Sharena replies that she was simply looking at the school building, which seemed strange to her. The pink-haired lady is surprised, and the girl admits that she sometimes does stupid things. Hestia says she understands, and asks that she be sure to tell him if any problems arise. The main character agrees, but realizes that she doesn't know how to tell the truth. The novel she knew was called Hestia's Boyfriend. It featured Hestia as the main character and Sharena as her friend. Despite her minor role, Sharena attracted the attention of many men. But this had nothing to do with romance. She was seen merely as a convenient tool next to Hestia. It's all because of these vile men. The lady understands that without her popular friend, none of this would have happened. Hestia asks again what's wrong. The protagonist replies that she's just looking around. The girl realizes that she never liked the original plot. She has no intention of wasting her life playing matchmaker. Soon Hestia announces that dinner is over. Sharena replies that she needs to change for fencing and leaves first. Hestia reminds her friend not to forget about her, even if boys start courting her. Sharena assures her that won't happen. Having changed into the uniform, the girl understands how serious a step this is. No matter how hard she tries, Haley is also learning fencing, and they will have to meet every day. He was in the process of transformation then, but if he is not stupid, he can notice the similarities. She looked more mature then, but not now. Sharena understands there's no way out. Going outside, the girl catches the student's glances. She thinks that everything is fine because her face is covered with a towel. But the looks don't go away, and she doesn't understand why, because Haley is standing on the other side. Luckily, he's keeping to himself. The lady thinks the plan worked. He won't recognize her, and she will remain unnoticed. At that moment, the teacher orders them to line up in 2 rows. The main character thinks this is excellent. The teacher explains that the first lesson will reveal their strengths. The girl notes that she will most likely end up in a pair with the prince. She doesn't want this and hates him more than anyone else. Perhaps because of the disgusting original plot. There were almost no male characters, and one of them was the worst of all. This is the madly obsessed Prince Haley, who used Sharena for Hestia's sake. When the plan failed, he showed his true colors and hurt her. The girl understands that it's not a matter of age. She's sure he'll get his taste back. For the sake of a peaceful life, she must endure. At that moment, the teacher approaches and is surprised that she is the only girl. He greets her, and Sharena responds and admits that she is not yet ready for sparring. She asks permission to practice alone, but the teacher turns to her again. He says that one should not avoid the path just because of fear. He knows that it is difficult for her, but he asks her to go through this path boldly and with fire in her heart. The girl apologizes in her mind, realizing that's not the issue at all. The teacher says he respects her choice. He promises to support her and not let her shy away from challenges if she wants to become a knight. Instead, he offers to help, and the main character asks what kind. The teacher calls Haley and asks her to come over. Sharena is shocked to realize that this is the worst possible option. When the prince approaches, the teacher asks him for a favor. He says he won't report him for being idle if he helps. Haley replies that he wasn't idle. When asked what he was doing, the young man remains silent. Sharena realizes that after her dreams, her purpose has become clear. While others dream of marriage with a prince and fantasies, she thinks differently. She wants to become a civil servant for the sake of stability and the high pension of the imperial knights. Sharena knows she has to study harder and pushes herself every day. She looks at her reflection and convinces herself that she can handle it. The girl trains her endurance, fencing, and takes care of herself. Now she silently begs her teacher to stop. Otherwise, years of work will go down the drain, and she could face prison for insulting the royal family. Haley asks if the teacher would like him to coach her. The main character doesn't believe what's happening. The teacher agrees and promises not to tell anyone. He orders them to begin. The young man approaches the lady and declares that she is now training with him. A moment later, the teacher announces the start of classes. He asks the first students from each row to start. The prince invites the lady to step aside and orders her to follow him. They walk away, and the young man says it's quiet here. He asks why she's wearing a towel. Haley asks if she's done anything wrong. Lady denies it. Then he demands to take off the towel, but the girl only shakes her head harder. The young man gets angry and orders her to remove the towel because her silence is making him angry. Sharena understands that he can't do this. He mustn't find out who she is. Haley is outraged that the teacher entrusted him with this child. She thinks he might simply refuse. The young man says that if she is not serious, then why did she choose fencing at all? Suddenly he freezes and stares at her. Sharena is frightened by this gaze. But he says he's had enough and asks if she's in love with him too. He claims that she came here to meet him, like everyone else. The prince smugly asks why he's so irresistible. The girl thinks what nonsense he's talking about. The tension in her chest suddenly releases, and she feels lighter. The lady replies that this is nonsense, but he accuses her of lying because of her look. He says that she hides her face on purpose to evoke pity. The young man draws his sword and is indignant at how she dares to take up arms for such a reason. He shouts that this is only the first day and she should leave the faculty immediately. Shirena asks what he's talking about. The prince declares it disgusting. The girl gets furious, and he says that he wasted his time. The main character asks who he is to judge like that. The prince calls her annoying and asks why girls even come here. Shirena replies that it's certainly not for those narcissistic boys. He demands to know the real reason. The girl screams that it's money. Her goal is wealth and glory. She will become a knight, and everyone will know her name. A position, a mansion, a salary, and a pension. That's the reason. This has nothing to do with the crown prince. Haley is angry, yet feels strangely uneasy. Shirena asks if he's finished and demands the wooden sword back. He doubts her words. The girl replies, that isn't the meaning of life. Hearing her laugh, the boy feels a familiar feeling. He asks her to wait, and if they have met before. Her voice seems familiar to him. The main character realizes that she was overexcited and spoke more rudely than usual. She says it's impossible. But Haley remembers the lady who took the sword from him, and her words about him staying in the ball forever. At that very moment, the prince orders the towel to be removed because he needs to check something. At that very moment, he rips the towel off the lady and asks, stunned, if she really was that very woman. When the main character tries to justify herself, the young man only sharply shouts that this is the very woman who stole his dwarven sword a couple of days ago. He recalls that she was magically cloaked back then. The girl asks why she would do something like that, suggesting he's just imagining things. But the young man immediately replies that such red eyes and a disgusting voice are impossible to forget. The main character immediately says there's lunch after this lesson. However, the young man angrily yells at her, asking what she's even talking about, and demands she stop evading him. The girl calmly replies that the school lunches are very tasty and she looks forward to them, meaning that she is going to help the waiters with serving the dishes. Haley asks why she's doing this and tells her not to be stupid. Then he suddenly asks where Zana went, and the lady, moving away, asks, perplexed, what he's talking about. The young man asks if she is really going to stand there and is indignant that the lady dared to retreat when he ordered her to remain where she was. The girl replies that the prince was careless in small things, and the young man immediately falls into a rage. He shouts loudly, asking if she really wants to be punished for insulting the imperial family. The main character runs away from him, realizing that it was a mistake, and mentally asks him to stop talking to himself. The young man screams, wondering if she really thinks she can escape from him. The girl remembers the prince saying how closely he watches her movements. Realizing this, she activates speed magic and instantly escapes from him. The girl runs past the teacher, who, shocked, asks where she's running, as it's class time. Shirena replies, running, to the bathroom. One of the students asks if she's nervous about being paired with Prince Charming, since Haley is clearly very popular. At the same moment, the guy behind them threateningly demands that they repeat what they said. He glares menacingly after the fleeing lady. A little later, someone asks the protagonist if she's already returning to her room. The girl suggests going for a short walk instead, but her companion says that the fencing lessons were too grueling, and she wants to go to bed early. Hestia immediately hugs her friend and asks why she even went to such a faculty, after which she suggests that she take a rest. The girl adds that they will see each other tomorrow morning, and the main character agrees. In her thoughts, the lady apologizes to Hestia, realizing that she cannot sit idle on the streets because of the prince. In any case, everything is serious because she cannot avoid him until the very end of her studies. The girl climbs the stairs and, entering the room, immediately falls onto the bed. She sighs heavily and thinks about what to do tomorrow, after which her gaze falls on her purse. Hearing strange sounds, she realizes that it sounds like a voice message and wonders if it is coming from home. After finding the magical item, she hears someone calling out to her and greeting her. The main character asks if it is Cal and says that she would contact him herself if necessary. The guy apologizes and explains he wants to talk about a magical video recovery tool. The girl asks if there are any problems and hears in response that the client was wondering if everything will be ready by tomorrow. The lady replies that she also has a schedule, but the interlocutor adds that the customer is ready to pay another 5 gold coins. The main character happily says that as soon as everything is fixed, she will immediately send the item to the transfer zone. The interviewer notes that this is expected of Miss Shunabaran and asks her to do the job. The girl agrees and asks him to trust her. She thinks it's a good thing she has a part-time job, since she decided to become a civil servant for the sake of financial independence. Her salary and pension alone are not enough for her to take care of her family affairs. So she created the alter ego Shunabaran, an underground repairman who repairs the magical tools of the criminal underworld. To hide her identity, she took the pseudonym Shunabaran, borrowing the name from a cookie. The magic system turned out to be similar to the programming she had studied in her past life, and it helped her a lot. Thanks to this, she became famous for her skills and received many orders. 5 gold on top is a huge amount, so it will have to be repaired as soon as possible. The girl understands that now she needs to refine the voice transmission structure, because when it was created, the sound seemed to crackle slightly. Having found the required item, she decides to start repairing it immediately. But at that moment, someone enters the room and addresses Shirena, and she immediately hides the magical instrument in her bag. The girl asks if it is Hazel's sister, who has come, and hears an affirmative answer. Hazel asks if she's back and how her first day at the academy went. The protagonist replies that everything was great. Then the interlocutor asks about the fencing lesson and whether it was fun. In her mind, the girl answers affirmatively, remembering how she tried to escape, but out loud she says that everything is fine. Hazel asks if she knows the prince is also a swordsman, meaning they've met before, and asks if she's gotten a good look at him. The protagonist realizes that was the whole point of the conversation. Hazel asks if they've talked. The girl replies yes, and then answers affirmatively to questions about his appearance and personality. The interlocutor asks what this means, and the main character again says that everything is fine. She adds that perhaps she simply worded it incorrectly, and Hazel agrees. Hazel then asks if she heard that the dinner before the fencing was really good. She also mentions rumors that there is a certain idiot among the first-year students in the fencing department. They say she went to the bathroom during class and didn't come back, supposedly because she was severely constipated, and Hazel hopes it's not Shirena. The main character, shocked, asks what she is talking about, realizing that she cannot believe it, because she was supposed to meet with the crown prince. At the same time, the guy slams the table hard, and his interlocutor notices that this is quite unexpected. He asks if his neighbor could stop being angry and go to bed, but he replies that it is impossible to sleep in this state. It's all her fault, although the neighbor notes that seeing Haley awake is a strange sight. After this, the young man wonders who this girl is. The next day, the students are sitting at lunch. One of them complains about being too lazy to go to class after eating, and the other agrees. Then comes the idea of relaxing at home. Afterwards, they remark that the food was indeed delicious, and ask Hestia if this is true. Not seeing her friend nearby, one of the girls asks where she went since they were walking together. They tell her that Shirena went somewhere. One of them says that even though they're childhood friends, it's strange that Hestia is so drawn to this girl, given that she loves fencing. Lydia replies that once they get to know her better, everything will become clear. A little earlier, the boys asked Hestia what type she liked. She replied that her ideal was a person similar to Shirena. Perhaps there is a hidden charm to this girl, although the interlocutor doubts it and adds that Hestia herself is odd. At this time, the girl sits in the bushes and drinks a drink, asking Shirena how long they have been there, because her leg already hurts. The main character replies that if that's the case, then she shouldn't have followed her. When her friend wants to ask what she's doing, Shirena immediately covers her mouth. At that moment, someone on the road calls out to the redhead. He says that he saw her and orders her to come out without hiding, asking how much longer she plans to hide. He then turns to passers-by, asking if they have seen the ugly red-haired girl. Hestia whispers to Shirena why the crown prince is pursuing her. The main character recalls how she insulted the prince, realizing that this was a serious crime against the royal family. Now she just says that the prince is making a mountain out of a molehill, although she realizes that all this could end in her falling into eternal sleep. But her friend will not believe her. She tells Hestia that her future husband candidate is bothering her, and she asks in surprise what nonsense is going on. At this moment, the boy hits a stone with a stick, which flies very close to the main character. He shouts that if the girl does not come out, he will put her into eternal sleep and begins throwing stones in all directions. The guy continues asking if she is going to go out and where she is hiding. The main character understands that this behavior can drive her crazy because he behaves exactly like in the original. One of the stones bounces off a tree and hits Hestia on the head, causing the girl to let out a muffled scream. The prince joyfully shouts that she is caught and demands that the redhead come out immediately. The main character tells Hestia that it's all over with her, but they will meet again someday. At that moment, the girl stands up, and Shirena looks at her in surprise. Hestia asks what that was, and the main character thinks how she can hate the one who just saved her life. The prince is surprised and says that the girl is not a redhead at all. The interlocutor asks why he was so surprised, and why he throws stones at people in the first place. The young man is indignant, admits that he didn't think there was anyone there, and apologizes. He also asks if she's hurt. She replies that she's fine, but he wonders why she was sitting in the bushes. The lady says that she will probably go, but the young man asks her to wait. Hestia doesn't listen to him, and the boy calls out to her again, realizing that she hasn't even told him her name. The main character remains in the bushes and wonders what this strange atmosphere is. Then she wonders if this was the first meeting of the main characters, and if this is how it happened in the original. At this time, the young man notices the bottle left by the girl, picks it up, and says that the lady was crying so innocently. He thinks that he will never be able to forget the shimmer of her pink hair because tears broke his hard heart. The main character covers her ears, realizing that this can't be happening, and asks herself why he's even saying this. The young man claims that this is the first time he has experienced something like this, and his heart cannot withstand this whirlwind of feelings. He decides that if they are lucky enough to meet again, he will definitely make her smile, not cry. Shirena mentally begs him to stop because she is literally twisting from the cringe, and this could lead to eternal sleep. At that moment, something nearby makes a sound, indicating that everything has been recorded, and the girl realizes in shock that it is an object in her pocket. She realizes that the voice message has been recorded and remembers that she had recently been planning to improve the playback function. There is no time, so we will have to fix it later, but we urgently need to configure the instrument so that recording is only activated by pressing it. And then someone else climbs into the bushes and turns to the redhead, shouting what she just wrote down. The main character responds with confusion that this simply cannot be, and quickly says that it is time for her to go. A little while later, the girl, out of breath, returns to the room and thinks how all this could have happened at such an inopportune moment. She thinks that if he gets so angry that he decides to kick her out of school, then everything will become clear. After all, now she has something she can blackmail him with, and in this situation she clearly comes out on top. Later, the lady plays the recording for her neighbor, who has just gotten out of the shower. Hearing her, she immediately starts laughing and asks if this is a joke. Then she asks who it is, and the main character replies that it is just an acquaintance, realizing that they are talking about the prince that Hazel has been pining for a long time. The neighbor says that if she doesn't want rumors, it's better to turn it off, otherwise the recording will become a school legend. The main character grins and agrees, then realizes she's looking forward to her next fencing lesson. A little later, the girl says she'll go alone. Shirena adds that they will see each other in the evening and wishes her friend good luck in class. She runs off, again wishing everyone good luck. Hestia's friend is surprised, as the lady had recently been gloomy, but now she's full of energy, and the other remarks that it's actually pleasant. Hestia replies that no, because she is used to Shirena like this, she was worried about her, but now she is glad that the girl is okay. The main character confidently heads to a fencing lesson, approaches the prince, and wishes him luck in a one-on-one sparring match. The young man only looks at her menacingly, and the main character responds with a confident grin. She turns to Prince Haley and asks if anything is bothering him, and the boy, surprised, asks what she is talking about. The girl replies that his feelings are too strong and difficult to cope with. After all, yesterday he himself said that he was experiencing this for the first time and his heart might not be able to handle it. The lady adds that this is one of the signs of heart disease, so he should get checked by a doctor. The young man asks what she is trying to achieve, and the main character clarifies whether he really wants to know, realizing that he is open to negotiations and that she needs to pay back for the bullying. She then says that he misunderstood her because she was talking about her heart, and plays a recording where he asks if she is interested in him. It also says she came to the fencing department because of him and is no different from the other girls. The boy snatches the stone from her and screams when she managed to write it down. The guy immediately breaks the stone, and the main character just smiles. She takes out another stone and asks the crown prince what she should do with it now. After all, it seems she accidentally made too many copies. The prince says it's vile to use people's weaknesses against them. He asks again what she wants, and the girl replies that when she becomes a knight, she will serve Haley faithfully and truly, so the question is open. The guy says he swears he hates her, and the lady says that's great and asks him to calm down, promising to explain everything. She admits that she has one wish and asks him what he thinks needs to be done to succeed. The interlocutor replies that the question is stupid and that success requires persistent training, since luck and talent alone are not enough. Shirena agrees that this is expected, but calls this view wrong, believing that he does not know life well. The young man asks what is needed then, and the girl replies that success is 1% talent and 99% influence. Haley is surprised, and the lady explains that there have been no new faces in the First Imperial Order of Knights for a long time. This is a place for ossified old people who hate change. They expel anyone they don't like without a second thought, and it's impossible to influence the exam. The young man admits that this is a serious problem, but the lady interrupts him and asks him to be her insurance. In other words, she wants him to do his best to give her a fair exam and not misunderstand her. He asks if she understands that such words require confidence in her own skills. The girl replies that they may not be enough now, but by graduation she will reach the required level. The prince is amazed by her self-confidence, and the main character only smirks, after which he agrees to the deal. In return, he asks her to remember to destroy all the crystals, and the lady assures him that he need not worry. Then the guy says he has one more condition and asks if he can voice it. Shirena offers to speak. The young man admits that he wants to get closer to her friend, hoping for help, but the girl refuses, explaining that this will create a second condition. Then the guy offers to help her with training, so that she can get into the First Order of Knights. Shirena agrees and promises to introduce him to her friend, and the young man happily offers to start training right away. Meanwhile, the prince's neighbor walks down the corridor with a book, and suddenly realizes that he read about him in a new magical story. He tries to find information, but realizes that there are no photographs or interviews. It seems that this person works underground, and it will not be easy to reveal his identity, so all that remains is to think about placing an order. Turning the corner, the guy notices a group of girls walking down the corridor. Hestia is among them, and he finds himself unable to tear his eyes away from her. At this moment, another guy approaches the girl and asks if she read his letter. because he had been waiting a long time for an answer. Hestia apologizes, but he replies that everything is fine, and she has nothing to apologize for. She admits that she didn't answer because she didn't know how to refuse him. The girl feels awkward, but still smiles, and the prince's neighbor realizes that appearances are deceiving. The guy asks if he's really not her type at all. Hestia replies that yes, because her ideal is a person similar to Shirena. The blonde man wonders if she's talking about Shushu. A little later, the teacher begins a lecture, explaining the significance of the color black in the history of the empire. He says that it was the dragon's color that influenced the country's founding, and this can be easily seen in art and music. Hestia is almost asleep, and the main character is drawing in her notebook, thinking that after solving the problem with the prince, the lesson is going surprisingly calmly. She feels that Haley is very different from her book character, and falls in love with Hestia in a completely different way than in the novel. Although, according to the plot, they were supposed to meet later, and the girl wonders if it all happened too soon. She decides that Haley was much more normal as a child, but at that moment someone flicks her on the forehead. It turns out it's the teacher, asking what she's so lost in thought that she's not even taking notes. She apologizes and promises to take notes tomorrow. The teacher reminds her of the proverb about not putting things off, and the main character is perplexed as to why he picked on her in particular. The man adds that if she had excellent grades, he would turn a blind eye, and the girl recalls rumors about his complexes and late graduation. At that moment, the bell rings, and the main character grabs her friend, shouting to the teacher that they will see each other again. She rushes with magical acceleration and tells Hestia that the dinner today is delicious and they need to hurry. Hestia replies that she can't run anymore, and the protagonist agrees to walk more slowly. Then someone else calls out to them and asks them to wait. It turns out to be Prince Haley, and the girl asks what happened. The young man says they need to talk and asks Hestia to borrow her friend for a minute. Hestia is indignant and asks if he really wants to talk to Shirena and not her. The guy is embarrassed. At first he wants to answer differently, but still says yes, and the main character thinks what a fool he is for missing his chance. Hestia turns around and allows them to talk, saying it's rude. The prince nervously asks if they're making fun of him. Watching Hestia leave, the guy realizes that she is beautiful even from behind, and the main character thinks that this already looks like psychosis. She advises the crown prince to pull himself together and finally say something. The young man agrees and asks what strange thing she did during yesterday's sparring. Shirena replies that it was a normal sparring session. But he asks what kind of magic she used, because it was rough. The girl explains that she only increased the speed and power of the weapon and slightly weakened his wooden sword. The guy shouts that she did it on purpose, noticing how her lips are trembling. But the lady replies that he is imagining it. The young man turns away and says that he wanted to help her with her practice, but she acted meanly, and if this continues. At this moment, the lady comes closer, and the guy asks in surprise what she wants. She says that, firstly, it is too frivolous to consider an opponent weaker than oneself. A true knight must be prepared for a real fight, and even training was a real fight for her. The prince doesn't know what to answer, and the main character understands with a grin that everything is going according to plan. The young man says he expected this and thought she would definitely use magic, so he prepared himself. The girl is indignant at his words. He then admits that he was arrogant, as he had encountered magic before, but this was the first time he had seen anything like this. The lady turned out to be unpredictable, and he had a hard time dealing with it, and she understands how difficult it is to admit defeat for the first time. It reminds her of her past life and how she consoled her younger brother after he failed a test. She was going to tease the prince for a long time, but now he looks too pathetic. That's why the girl tells him not to be discouraged, because it's not about poor skills. She sincerely believes that he is a great guy, and the world is full of talented people. Not everyone can admit their opponent's meanness and their own defeat. The young man smiles and asks if he's serious. The lady then tells the prince that she is inferior to the other swordsmen in strength and endurance. She asks him to help her walk this path and promises to support him in return. The girl assures that she will do everything possible, and the young man agrees to take it upon himself. After this, the main character says that she will see her at afternoon classes and gets ready for lunch. But the guy asks to wait and offers to eat together with his cook, since everything in the canteen is already taken. He urges her to go right now, and the lady understands that if we are talking about the prince, then the table would certainly be laden with all sorts of delicacies, and perhaps she had doubted in vain. The girl wonders if she can continue to be so confident with magic. The next day, the young man hands her a list and says that it is a muscle development program designed especially for her. Who would have thought he'd be so inspired? The main character reads the list and realizes with horror that the first item is 1,000 push-ups, the second is 5,000 squats, the third is 2,000 jumping jacks, and the fourth is 2,000 high jumps. She clutches the paper tightly and wonders if squats and push-ups really belong in the same day. The girl asks if this is a plan a human being can actually sustain. The boy calmly replies that he trained like this when he was 9 or 10 years old and wonders if everyone does the same. The main character says that it sounds simple and asks if she needs to repeat everything exactly after him. She adds that if he doesn't like her, He could have said it directly, because an ordinary person like her simply wouldn't be able to stand it. Haley excitedly asks if such a trivial program seems too exhausting to her. Then he cries out that all he needs to do is deliver 200 blows with magically enhanced fists from the burn, relax, anticipate the ball's attack, and strike another 200 times. The protagonist replies that it sounds wonderful and wonders if it wouldn't be easier to simply awaken his instincts and dodge from a hidden blow. The young man replies that she seems to be simply lazy, and the lady sharply retorts. After this, he suggests testing her sincerity right during sparring. He also orders the wooden sword to be raised while the lady neighbor nearby continues to do her exercises. Soon she gives up and says that she can't do it anymore and will have to ask Shirena to give her something simpler. Then the girl wonders when she will return, because it is already deep night. At this moment, the main character opens the door and looks as if she is about to fall into eternal sleep. She says she's arrived, and her neighbor notices how exhausted she is and offers to help. Shirena replies that she's fine, but before she could finish speaking, she immediately fell to the floor. A short while later, her neighbor was already drying her hair. The main character thanks her and says that she will explain everything now, but she wonders what else she can do when her muscles hurt so much that she can barely walk. When Shirena tries to add something, her interlocutor asks with a grin if she thinks that if it gets even more painful, she will finally stop twitching. She also asks if the girl has been injured again and offers to offer her hands. The neighbor asks what happened to the lady's hands, as it is clearly due to training, and the main character understands that she has been taking care of her for several days in a row. The cursed prince kept increasing the load, and the training became so hard that she passed out without even taking a shower. The neighbor dragged her into the bathroom and said that since there was water, she should at least wash her face. The lady can't help but wonder how she manages to maintain her image by constantly taking care of it. The woman is worried that the crown prince is overdoing it, as he has no limits. The protagonist thinks they've only known each other for a short time, but Hazel already does so much for her and remains surprisingly kind. The girl says that since the medicine has been taken, she can make a few face masks. The main character replies that there's no need, even if she doesn't make them, but the neighbor reminds her that she herself said how much she loves it. A little later, Hazel falls asleep. The main character realizes that after the conversation she immediately fell asleep and, it seems, had already slept well. In her mind, she thanks Hazel, and notices that thanks to her, she feels better and her skin seems to glow. Perhaps the biggest stroke of luck after entering the academy was meeting a roommate like Hazel. The lady turns around, but at that moment, someone knocks on the door. She realizes she's so tired she doesn't even have the strength to get up and open it. She wonders who could have come so late, but suddenly someone appears behind her and addresses her. The protagonist is startled, but turns around to see Hestia. Shirena asks what she's doing here at this hour, as she's given her quite a fright. Hestia silently crawls under the blanket, and the main character asks what is happening, and if something happened. Hestia replies that nothing happened, she just had a nightmare and was very scared. Shirena asks if this is true, and she says that yes, she dreamed of Shirena. But this was not the Shirena she knew, but a girl laughing among other people. When Hestia called her, she did not answer and did not even look in her direction. Now Hestia says that she felt very lonely without her, and the main character turns to her friend with sadness. She realizes that she was immersed in training and didn't pay attention to Hestia, and it must have been hard for her to be alone in a new place. Hestia hugs her friend and admits that she is afraid of growing up. She wants to fool around with her all her life, but she understands that this will not happen, and again apologizes to Shirena. She says that even though she looks immature, she asks her friend to wait, and then she will become better. The main character calms her down and suggests that she just sleep, because everything will definitely be fine. She understands that Hestia is too worried, and that she needs to relax properly tomorrow. The next day, the main character demonstrates bicep curls and tricep exercises. She strikes a funny pose, and people around her watch it with smiles. Some even say that the girl is a little crazy. Hestia smiles and asks what Shirena is doing, and the protagonist is happy that she is smiling again. She replies that she is demonstrating the results of diligent physical training. She then asks her friend if she thinks she has gained a little muscle, and she agrees. Hestia notices they didn't go to the gymnasium this morning and asks how long she'll be staying, as she has a lot of training ahead of her. Shirena replies that everything is fine and that sometimes it's necessary to rest. The lady realizes that she has come up with a new way to take revenge on the crown prince. She will ask him to block 100 attacks with a gravity-weighted wooden ball. Hestia asks her friend to wait, as she needs to change, and it's already past lunchtime. The protagonist agrees that it's time to go. Hestia then asks to wait a little longer and hands her a gift. A friend happily asks if this is grape ice cream, because she has wanted to try it for so long. She wonders why they had to spend so much money, since it's not worth it, and the main character replies that real ice cream really is too expensive. So she made it herself from grape juice and put it in an ice pack. Hestia says it's incredibly cool, and that the ice cream turned out very tasty. Shirena is pleased with this, wishes him bon appetit, and says that they will see each other later for dinner. As she leaves, Hestia looks at the ice cream a little sadly, and understands that the lady always looks only forward and goes towards the goal. She thinks about what will happen if she is left behind and what she should do then. After some time, the main character changes into her uniform and realizes that she is ready. She looks in the mirror and thinks she was trying to be funny for Hestia's sake, but notices that her physical form has actually improved. This guy's methods are annoying, but they are much more effective than training on your own. The girl decides that since he was kind to her, today she will be especially careful in using magic during training. A little later, the lady sits on a bench and notices that there is not a soul around, and wonders if she has arrived too early. Soon she sees 3 boys and realizes that they are the same traffic light trio. One of them says that they are alone here, and he did what he wanted. Another asks what exactly, and he replies that he learned in magic class that air enhances fire magic, and is inside them. He clarifies that he means farting. All 3 start laughing, and the main character wonders if he's still at the elementary school level. One suggests doing it right now, the other claims he knows how to use fire magic, and the guy with yellow hair demands to be allowed to be in charge and get ready. The main character is shocked and wonders what they are even talking about and whether they are actually going to do it. They actually do it, and the girl watches in disgust, deciding to pretend she's not there. At that moment, turning around, she notices the prince nearby. He holds up the recording and asks if she's ever looked at him with that same expression. The main character wonders if it is his dark history that is being discussed, and understands that yes, of course it is. The young man says he's glad she deleted the post, as she promised. But she looks away, and the guy screams, "Did the redhead really not do this?" Shirena shrugs and asks how she could break her promise. After this, the guy rushes after her, shouting that today everything will end for her. After some time, he washes his face and sighs heavily. Lifting his shirt and looking at the bruises, he realizes that the lady has truly won over him, no matter what. He remembers her saying that if he couldn't hold on to gravity magic, then training would be pointless. As he struck, she asked why he was moving so slowly, and how he could not dodge such simple attacks. The young man understands that he hasn't been beaten like this for a long time, and it's unpleasant to admit, but her magic is truly excellent. She should have gone to the Faculty of Magic, and he wonders why she chose fencing and continues to bother him. He recalls how the girl said that she should become a knight for the sake of a stable life, housing, and a good pension. The guy decides that she is very strange, and it is easier to turn a blind eye to all this. Still, it was his fault that she knocked the sword away from him, because at that moment he had already made a mistake and wanted to touch her. He understands that it is impossible to fix the past, and all that remains is to continue training. Magic control is unique, so it's useful to learn different countermeasures. He remembers the lady saying that Haley was improving quickly, and realizes he'd probably been thinking for days about how to handle this move. The guy catches himself thinking that her praise sounds like a mockery, but with dueling practice, everything is fine. Sometimes he feels like the lady treats him like a younger brother, and he convinces himself that it is just his imagination. He smiles and understands that it is strange, but it doesn't bother him at all. At this point, the neighbor turns to the crown prince and asks why he is smiling when he was covered in mud on that rainy day. The guy realizes he wasn't alone, and replies it doesn't matter. The neighbor shrugs and continues eating his chips. Looking at the mess, the guy thinks that he is lazing around again and hasn't even cleaned up. Even though he is the eldest son of the rider Deboas, his behavior is disgusting, and he hates Corey even more than the redhead. Suddenly, a neighbor asks Haley if he by any chance knows Shusha. The young man wonders if this is Shirena's nickname, although he has never heard of it before, and answers that no. The interlocutor says that he understands, wishes good night, and leaves. The prince simply turns menacingly to Corey Deboas and offers to clean up this candy trash. He looks at him wearily. After a short while, the protagonist tells Hestia it's time to act. All you have to do is write your name. The girl turns to Shush, slightly puzzled. She apologizes and says the Magic Management Club isn't right for her, as she understands next to nothing about magic. Shirena insists that's impossible, but she insists. She'd heard that 2 people were enough to open a club. In response, she was told that the main thing was to get started, and then the membership could be maintained. Shirena understands that with good activity, the club will be able to receive funding, but she still refuses. She's in the gardening club, so she excuses herself and leaves. Shirena replies that everything is fine, and they'll see each other again. The main character thinks that she needs to urgently find another participant, but when she looks into the classroom, she realizes that there is no one there. At that moment, a guy comes into the room and asks if Shusha is here. Shirena turns around and asks why he's looking for her. The young man repeats the question. He then adds that he shouldn't look for Shusha at the fencing department. The girl wonders if he's talking about her and why he needs her. His aggressive gaze is a little frightening. At the same time, he is quite handsome, and if they had met earlier, she would have remembered him. Shirena replies that Shushu is not at the fencing department, and the guy asks where she is then. The girl asks him to introduce himself first and explain his purpose. She understands that she wanted to remain silent, but he clearly wants information. The guy starts rummaging through his pocket and takes out a lollipop, which greatly surprises her. He unwraps the candy, puts it in his mouth, and says he's just curious what Shushu looks like. The main character can't believe her ears, but the guy is already saying that he'll go then. He adds that since they know each other, she should tell him that Corey Deboas was looking for Shusha. Hearing the name, the girl understands that in front of her is one of the main characters of the novel. the son of the writer Deboas and a rising star of the empire, one of those who fell in love with Hestia. His feelings in the story seemed weaker than others, because he was more focused on magic. But in reality, he cared about Hestia more than most, and the girl does not understand why such a man is looking for her. She calls out to him and says that in fact Shushu is she. Corey is surprised and admits that he thought it was some guy's nickname. It turns out it's a girl, and she gives her full name, Sharena West. She asks why he was looking for her, but the guy replies that it was nothing special. He'd heard that Hestia's ideal type was Shushu, and he was curious. Sharena wondered what a fool Hestia was, and why she'd even said such a thing. She remembers how her friend said that Shushu was the best and the only one. She called her the coolest, and now the main character understands that before everything was under control. And yet, from the moment I arrived here, everything went wrong. She wonders if this means that Hestia and Corey have already met, like in the original story. As with the prince, everything happened much earlier than it should have. The guy says goodbye and thanks her for the conversation. The girl responds, thinking that this doesn't mean things will speed up before graduation. She recalls that something else is more important now. She needs to find at least one person to open the club. Haley is already a member of the fencing club and will likely offer daily sparring sessions. Hazel runs the magic club, and everyone she knows has already joined clubs, making the situation seem hopeless. Sharena thinks about going to those traffic light boys and forcing them to do it, but she immediately remembers the fart story and winces. At that moment, a brilliant idea comes to her mind. After all, Corey remains. She rushes after him, remembering that in the original he was an excellent magic user, which means he cannot be let go. Seeing him, she realizes that she caught up with him in time, and he didn't go far. At that moment, Corey bumps into the other guy, and the candy flies out of his mouth. He cries out in pain and rudely tells her to watch where he is going. Corey calmly says that now he won't be able to finish the candy, which frightens the interlocutor and recognizes him. The boy immediately apologizes. Sharena notices that his expression is frightening, but after their conversation, she knows that he is not scary and decides to talk to him again, addressing Corey Appa. She asks if he's interested in magic. He replies that it's his specialty and asks what she wants. Sharena invites you to dive into new facets of magic together at her club. Corey asks if they're talking about the Magic Control Club, and the girl confirms. She explains that they study magic circles, theory, application, and formulas there. Corey admits it sounds interesting, and Sharena asks if it's perfect for him. However, he says he wants to join a club with more members. Sharena exclaims that with a small group, the classes will be free. The guy replies that he just needs a place to rest, and if there are few people, he will have to work more. Sharena says he can do whatever he wants, because the Foundation's goal is simply to open a club. Corey calls the goal sinister and says he doesn't see the point. The girl asks him to think again. He replies that he doesn't like it and refuses again, even after a second request. The teacher notices them and tells Corey not to bully Sharena. The guy is surprised and says that he doesn't do anything like that. The main character realizes that he has been misunderstood again. She asks if he is often misperceived because of his heavy gaze. Corey replies that not very often, and then she asks him to smile. He warns her that she won't like it, but the girl says that everything is fine. When he smiles, Sharena becomes frightened and understands why he is so often misunderstood. She turns to Corey Appa again and asks if he really has no friends at all. After some time, the main character is already in the club room and realizes that everything she needs is there. There are only 2 people in the club, and they were given such a spacious room, and she notes the advantages of an elite academy. She thinks that if she doesn't do anything, the club will close, and that's what's most important right now. At that moment, someone comes in, and she asks if Corey Appa has arrived. Looking over the things he brought, she asks if this is all, and the guy answers in the affirmative. Looking into the box, she is surprised to find that there are only snacks and a blanket. Corey says that's enough, and offers her some sweets, which she happily accepts. He says that he brought a lot of sweets, so let him eat as much as he wants. Then he adds that, since he's brought everything, he can lie down and rest. Sharena doesn't understand what he's talking about. Corey lies down, covers himself with a blanket, and the girl realizes in shock that he is actually going to sleep. No matter how much she asks him to help with the club, he's still only interested in sleep. She recalls questions about friends and socializing. Then she asked if he was sure he wanted to join a club with a lot of people. After that, he took the form and said that he would write his name. Sharena understands that she has succeeded and the club is open thanks to her determination. She decides that the goal has been achieved and will no longer interfere with him. Suddenly, she hears a delighted sound and asks what happened. Corey replies that he is doing very well and adds that classes will be held every other day. This means that they will be able to do everything in advance and be free the rest of the time. It's a great privilege to be able to rest in such comfort, and Sharena wonders if he's too happy because his expression is frightening. She says she's happy for him, but wonders if he should practice smiling normally. Corey turns to Shush, stands up, and asks not to call him so respectfully. He suggests they communicate more simply, as friends, and Sharena understands how big the difference in status is. She thinks she can be punished for any mistake and doesn't understand why she should take the risk. The girl agrees, although she feels awkward and regrets that she used to address Cory Appa so formally. When she wants to say something else, he throws a cookie right into her mouth and tells her to shut up. Shirena takes out the cookie and wonders if this is really it, turning back to Cory Appa. But the guy immediately throws a few more sweets into her mouth, which greatly surprises her. She understands that he will feed her until she starts calling him just Cory. After all, he's one of the novel's main characters, and yet he's completely hopeless. A little later, the girl is sitting in a music lesson. She's terribly bored and thinks there's nothing worse than a music lesson where she just opens her mouth. She thinks it would be better to work with the club because she really has fun spending time with Cory. The lady notices Hestia's voice and realizes that her friend has a very good one. At that moment, she sees someone entering the classroom and wonders if those two are already waiting for her. In her thoughts, she turns to the teacher, thinking that they are waiting for her, and there is very little time left until the end of the lesson. But the teacher suddenly turns to Shirena, and she asks what happened. The woman wonders what she was singing because it looks like she's just opening her mouth. The main character understands that she has been caught and replies that this is not true, she was simply misunderstood. Then the woman says that there is no need to practice anymore and tells you to open page 94 and sing the song from there. Shirena wonders how she noticed this, but the teacher adds that the lesson won't end until she finishes singing, so it's better to start right now. The main character feels all eyes turning to her, as if urging her to start faster. The lady realizes she has no choice and remembers the only reason she hates music lessons. Hestia always said her voice was great, but in reality, it was just awful. The main character notices the guys outside the door, waiting for her and smiling broadly. She realizes that she sings like a drunk at karaoke, but decides that it doesn't matter anymore, let them listen as much as they want. At that moment, the class erupts in laughter, and the lady realizes that this dark spot will forever remain in Shirena West's life. When she finishes, someone suddenly shouts that it was excellent and that she is the best. After that music lesson, everyone looked at her with smiles both in class and during breaks. Even during fencing, the prince almost falls over laughing, and the girl realizes that it's not just her classmates who are laughing, but strangers as well. Luckily, her friends become a real source of strength during these annoying school days. So the girl wonders why the teacher made her sing then, and hopes that in a couple of days everything will be forgotten and time will fly by faster. At least she can take her mind off things at the club, and when she goes into the room, she calms down a little. There she sees a guy wrapped in a blanket and doesn't understand why he settled like that. Shirena greets Cory Appa, but he doesn't respond, and the lady thinks he might be sleeping. She notices a note on the table where he apologizes and writes that he is going to bed, wishing her bon appétit. Shirena thinks how it is in his own way and how he prepared everything so that she could have a snack. Looking at the food, the lady notices that all of this is good for the throat. She pulls the blanket up and asks loudly if Cory Appa is asleep, then demands that he stand up right now and explain what this all means. The young man greets her and begins to say that he was thinking about her throat, but when he mentions her voice, he can hardly contain his laughter. The main character irritably asks to say everything out loud. Cory apologizes and admits that seeing her makes him remember her singing, and Shirena realizes that the music lesson ruined everything. After a little while, he hands her a candy, then a cookie, and tells her to eat more. Walking down the hallway, he hands her the sweets again and assures her that they are really tasty and worth trying. Even during recess, he treats her again and tells her to eat when she is hungry. This is repeated many times, and soon Hestia asks Shusha, why does Cory Appa always feed her sweets? And the girl replies that after her singing he laughed until he was colicky, and, apparently, this is his way of apologizing. The friend says she understands and notes that he's been out of sight today for some reason. The main character asks if she'd like him to come over regularly. She also clarifies why she cares about Cory Appa at all, since she used to stay away from him, considering him scary. Hestia replies that she used to think that way, but seeing his concern changed her mind. Moreover, he always brings sweets, and the main character jokingly asks if she missed lunch. At that moment, the guy comes up and says that this is where Shushu is, and Hestia immediately gets up and greets Cory Appa. The main character thinks that it seems like they should become closer than in the original story. She even imagines how the guy will treat the lady with sweets. A little while later, they are already in the magic circle, and Cory says that he has thought about something. He notices that the lady has a lot of things, and most of them look more like mechanical objects than magical. He suggests collecting magical artifacts, and the girl agrees, because she needs to demonstrate the club's effectiveness in protecting it from closure. Magic alone isn't enough. The guy says the club itself is important and will help with anything. Shirena realizes that, having eaten his fill of sweets and rested, he's now ready to work. Cory asks what her plan is and where they'll start. Shirena replies that she hasn't decided yet and will tell him everything she knows first. He asks if she will tell him the formula for her magic circle and how to rebuild it, wondering how she even thought of it. He knows that magic circles are related to mathematics, but he still finds it difficult, and the girl realizes that she used knowledge from a past life. Over time, Cory turns out to be a really good person. He is talented and humble in magic, listens attentively and is caring, making him easy to work with. Lady begins to wonder if Hestia would be better off with Cory instead of Haley, and mentally apologizes to Haley, admitting that her vote is for Cory. Then, the main character realizes that she was wrong all this time, and turns to Cory Appa. She asks him if he likes Hestia, and he is surprised by such a question, and the girl replies that she is just curious. On the day they met, he approached her out of curiosity about Hestia's ideal type, and Shiraina wonders if his offering of sweets was just an excuse to see Hestia. The guy thinks, sits down on the sofa, and says that this is strange. He admits that he noticed her from the very beginning, but they hardly communicated, and this is not enough to like someone. Come to think of it, he noticed her because she was his type, and her words had caught his attention. Nothing more. The main character asks what his type means. Cory replies that she has candy-colored hair and is cute, and also notes that she has been less afraid of him lately. He even feels a little sorry, because fear is a habitual reaction from those around him. The main character thinks that he should decide whether he likes her or not. Perhaps he is simply avoiding an uncomfortable topic, and the girl decides not to insist. Cory says he didn't come to see her to meet Hestia, which surprises Shiraina a little. The guy asks if that's all, and the girl replies that she asked out of curiosity. She adds that they were talking about Hestia, and doesn't understand what he's getting at. Then the lady says that she already knows the answer, because he has no friends, and the young man almost chokes on his tea. He objects and asks why he has no friends, reminding him of the Crown Prince. Shiraina, with a grin, suggests he sit down and not worry. Cory gets embarrassed and asks not to tease people, and the main character looks at his face. She smiles, realizing he's feeling much better this way. Cory asks why she's smiling, and she replies that it's nothing, thinking how cute he is. That night, the lady again dreams of the past, where the children ask if she brought cheesecake. She replies that yes, because mom and dad promised, and suggests waiting a little. Someone asks if they are full after the cafe, and the girl says that her friends were very worried, so she had to go, especially since he hardly ate. The guy complains that the smell of food was terrible and there was nothing to eat, and she sharply asks if Hansiyu has done his homework and to bring it. At that moment, an unknown number calls her, and she wonders who it is. After answering, the cake falls out of her hands as she is informed of a car accident. The lady wakes up in shock and realizes it was a dream. Soon, someone asks if Shushu is in any pain. A friend says she's been feeling dreadful since the morning and hasn't had lunch. The main character replies that everything is fine, blaming it on insomnia. Hestia asks if she really has insomnia and if something is bothering her, but the girl denies it. She realizes that the dreams of her past life are becoming more and more vivid. It has become easier to receive information about the novel. She can clearly see the text and read it. But the bad dreams have also become more vivid, so much so that they cause pain, as if everything is happening in reality. In this state, the lady cannot do anything and thinks how to get rid of it. At that moment, someone greets them, and Hestia bows to the Crown Prince Appa, who shyly asks her not to bow so low. He says that they are classmates, and that when they are alone, they can do without formalities. The main character looks at him and wonders why he doesn't talk to her like that, and whether he is still the same Crown Prince. She waves to him and asks if he can't see her, and the guy just says hello. Suddenly, he starts laughing, surprising both ladies, and apologizes. He says that when he looks at her, he remembers the music lesson, and the girl thinks what an idiot he is, deciding to forget it. Let him be the scapegoat for her bad mood. They will see each other again at fencing. Later in the magic circle, Cory says that once the circle was enlarged, everything became clear. All he needs to do is select the formula and insert a space in the subtracted part. He explains that he's analyzed everything according to her theory and asks if everything is okay. She replies that everything is fine and suggests trying the original size right away. Cory agrees and says to fold the circle and merge with the altered form. He succeeds, and the main character praises him for his quick learning. The young man replies that the lady is much better and perhaps the only one in history who has ever considered rebuilding the magic circle. Thanks to her, he has understood many spells and thanks her for her patience. The main character says that everything is fine and anyone can do it once they understand the principle. When Cory looks at her suspiciously, the girl asks what happened. He says that she has great talent and asks why she chose fencing, since it would be more interesting to go to magic lessons together. Shiraina replies that magic knights earn more than imperial mages. Cory agrees, but asks why money is such a concern to her when it comes to supporting the club. The girl says that this will ensure her a good future, and the guy asks if that is really all there is to it. He notes that her family is doing well, and wonders if there is another reason for the uncertainty of her future. Shiraina thinks it's funny because no one has ever asked her about it before. She can't just say that she knows her future for sure. The lady replies that she's still young and doesn't fully understand life, so she can't be sure everything will always be the same. She thinks this sounds normal, and isn't a lie. Cory says he feels like he knew her as a child, and asks what she's talking about. The main character replies that she is different from him and has experienced a lot in her past life. In her past life, she was born into a wealthy family, but everything changed when her parents were plunged into eternal sleep in a car accident. The girl decided to inherit their property, but due to her immaturity, she took on her father's debts. She lived a difficult life, caring for her younger brothers and sisters in a small basement room. The lady thinks she has had enough of empty hopes of living another day in an endless struggle for every coin. Even if she didn't know her current future, her attitude would hardly change. Misfortune could strike at any moment, and she doesn't want to live like that again. The lady almost cries, realizing how much she misses her younger brothers and sisters from her past life. It's all because of a dream, because from that day on, she can no longer control her emotions normally. At this moment, the guy waves his hand in front of her face and asks if she is okay. He says he blurted it out without thinking and apologizes. Shirena replies that everything is fine but understands how painful it is for her to see Corey like this. The young man suggests that she spend the rest of the day sleeping. He wraps her in a blanket and uses magic to transport her to the bed. Shirena, shocked, asks what he is doing, and the guy just strokes her head and tells her that she can get up when she feels better. The main character is surprised and closes her eyes. She thanks him and wonders if the blanket smells nice. After a while, someone comments that the magic circle is perfectly drawn again. If you add engraving at the end, the main work will be completed. All that remains is to adjust the power. The girl realizes that club activities require much more teamwork than she thought, and since this is a gift, it needs to be presented properly. The lady is grateful for last time and wants to give a return gift, hoping that Corey will like it. Meanwhile, the prince is angry and wonders if Shirena West really thought she could get away with it. Last time she was upset and beat him indiscriminately, but now, looking at the papers, he understands that this is her revenge for all the suffering. Corey turns to Haley and says it's time to take care of club business, asking if he'll go. Haley offers to go first. Corey agrees, but accidentally drops the bag of sweets. Haley wonders if he's really started eating more. He warns not to overdo it, and Corey replies that it's not just for him. Haley notices the magazine and asks if he hasn't returned it yet. Corey says that the magazine is his, a commissioned one, and the article about the person he is interested in turned out well. The prince asks if this is the underground genius in question, and cannot understand why anyone would like such a shady character. Corey replies that anyone who isn't interested in magic wouldn't understand. Haley objects, but then says he'll take the magazine. Moving on, the guy thinks that this man really is a genius. After all, creating an ultra-long-range communicator to communicate with the Far Eastern continent is incredible. Any mage would want to meet it. Approaching the doors of the circle, Corey realizes that Shushu is already here. He opens the door and greets the lady, and she invites him in. Corey says that he brought new sweets and offers to help himself, and the girl thanks him. He asks if she is almost finished with the project, and the lady replies that she is. Thanks to his help, everything was completed quickly, and she thanks him again. Corey remarks that the project seems familiar to him. He asks if this is Mount Ogren, near the academy. Shirena replies that it's a subsidized tavern, and he wonders why she chose it. The girl says that it would take a long time to explain, and the young man remembers that she will be taking the fencing exam there. The lady confirms that it is a practice test with monsters and asks how he knows. The guy replies that the Faculty of Magic will be there too. Shirena is surprised and asks if they'll see each other again. Corey smiles and says yes, and the girl notices that his smile has become much more natural. He asks about the deadline and whether it's related to the exam. The lady replies that yes, it's part of the club project. She promises to explain everything after the exam, and Corey asks her not to overdo it because the monsters are especially cruel now. Shirena understands that the more she communicates with him, the more she likes him, and even when asking questions, he never pressures her. She told him not to lie on the couch, but he outsmarted her, and now he's floating in the air, and she wonders if he realizes how tactful he is. To compare him to the prince would be a real blasphemy, and then the lady remembers something else. She says she has a gift for Corey. The young man looks and asks if it's really an earring. He asks if today is a special day, since his birthday is still a long way off. Shirena replies that it's a token of gratitude and an artifact for controlling magic. Corey says that such things are hard to come by, and looking at the decoration more closely, suddenly he goes into shock and falls to the floor. The girl asks what happened. The guy asks where she bought it. Shirena clarifies whether he's talking about the cube or the earring. He replies that it's about the earring and wonders if she really didn't buy it. The lady replies that she made it herself. The young man, shocked, asks again what she means by she did it herself. He asks if she's really the author of this engraving. Shirena answers in the affirmative and asks what's so special about it. The girl wonders if he didn't like it, but he suddenly says, "What does this mean? That she is Shunibaren?" Shirena is amazed that he knows this name. Soon, the lady is already looking at the article about Shunibaren and realizes that she did not expect to find herself in such a material. Corey says her inventions are innovative and she has a lot of fans. Shirena realizes she wore a cloak to conceal her appearance and was careful not to leave a trace. It's terrifying to realize that someone so obsessed exists. Now she can't mindlessly leave traces of her true identity. Corey asks if she really is Shunibaren. The girl understands that she will have to ask him to keep the secret and admits that it is true. She says he's the only one who knows, and at that moment, the guy asks to hold out his hands. He squeezes them and cries out that he cannot bear it because he has finally met Shunibaren. Shirena, shocked, asks where he ran and realizes that this is the first time she has seen him like this. Apparently, he really is a big fan of Shunibaran, and she hopes that there won't be any awkwardness between them in the future. Corey comes back, apologizes, and asks if he was too harsh, explaining that he was going out to calm down. The girl says that's good, and asks if he's feeling better now. He replies that he is. Corey adds that he really liked the decoration, and thanks her. Sharena is pleased that he's pleased. Suddenly, red liquid starts coming out of his ear and the girl screams in shock, wondering if he just got his ear pierced. After a while, the lady with pink hair writes something down, and someone tells Hestia that it's break time, and is she still studying? Hestia closes the book and replies that no, she is just drawing. Sharena smiles and says that if she needs help, let her friend know. Hestia asks if she's ready for the test. Sharena rubs her hands and realizes that she is ready to receive her scholarship. At this point, someone turns to Sharena West and asks how she did it. They also ask her to reveal a secret. The girl realizes it's Rose and is surprised by her audacity. Sharena asks if they are talking about the point system and is puzzled as to what it has to do with it, since they are not even close. Rose says she means Corey and asks what Sharena did to him. The main character replies that he only looks scary, but in reality he is nice, and if you want to get to know him, you should talk to him directly. Rose is indignant, saying she already tried, but he ignored her. Sharena assumes it was a misunderstanding. Rose replies that it is true, because he looked like he would put her to eternal sleep if she continued talking. Sharena understands that she is used to this, and Rose will not believe her anyway. She says she doesn't know, and it's none of her business, but Rose yells at her to wait and reveal the secret. The girl asks if Sharena thinks she can get away with it, just because she's beautiful. Sharena gets angry and wonders why it sounds like it's about some little dog. She turns around and approaches her interlocutor. He asks if she wants to know a secret, and when Rose excitedly asks what it is, Sharena simply blows in her ear. She screams and demands to stop. The main character runs away with her friend, saying that she really wouldn't mind helping. But what good is being friendly if your knees are shaking with fear? And will Corey like it? Hestia says that Corey Oppa is actually popular. Sharena, shocked, asks if he's being shunned. A friend explains that at first he is scary, but he is very handsome and comes from a good family. His magical abilities are the best in the class, and he was previously considered equal to the crown prince. Sharena is shocked and wonders what this feeling is like, as if she was hit on the head. Soon they find themselves on the mountain, and the girl does not take her eyes off Corey. She thinks that Corey DeBoas is a traitor, because despite all his popularity, he seems to have fewer friends than she does. Despite its frightening appearance, the reason for its popularity is simple. It is truly beautiful. Since he is the main character, this is natural, and the lady admits that she is jealous of his popularity. Sharena recalls that as a child she had short hair and was teased for being mistaken for a boy. Corey asks if everything is okay and why she is looking at him like that. He thinks she wants to say something, but the girl replies that she just wants to be as beautiful as he is. Corey gets embarrassed, turns away, and asks not to say that. He says he won't be able to look at her calmly after this. Sharena jokes that he's a fan of hers. The lady thinks that this is not enough, even though he is a fan of Shunibaran, but his embarrassment is cute. She offers an autograph, a hug, or holding hands, and the young man agrees to everything. The prince watches them and notices that for the first time, the lady is so calm and not at all nervous. The main character replies that she is trying to maintain her composure because she is determined to defeat Helioppa. At that moment, an announcement was made calling for students from the fencing and magic departments to gather at a designated location. Sharena looked at Haley and realized he'd gotten used to her teasing, so it wasn't as interesting anymore. Then one of the teachers announces that the junior group will be tested at the foot of Mount Ogren. The monster hunt will be held in 3 stages. The winner will be the student who repels the greatest number of attacks in 30 minutes. Sharena realizes her chance has finally arrived, and she's even becoming interested. The teacher tells the students not to worry, as any injuries will be taken straight to the first aid station. The girl thinks that this is expected, because she heard that the combat form is enchanted, and most likely uses a teleportation spell. Haley notes that there are too few students from the magic department. He is told that this practical test is optional for mages, and many simply don't want to participate. Haley asks if that means Swanhaden is one of them too, which is why he's not visible. Corey is surprised and says that the guy never went to the academy. Sharena thinks about Swanhaden, and Haley adds that he hasn't forgotten about him because Swan went to study abroad in the south of the continent. The interlocutor is surprised and asks if there is a war going on there and why study in such a dangerous place. At this moment, the girl clings to the name and wonders if this is really him they are talking about. A memory comes to mind of a boy who rudely told everyone to get out. Sharena understands that in her current life she has almost forgotten about him, although she once thought that she would not be able to erase him from her memory because he seemed almost like an angel to her. It turns out these two have known him since childhood too. Haley says that's fine, at least they won't have to run into him, and that's for the best. Corey mentions that Swan is already in his 3rd year, and Haley admits that, remembering his antics, she doesn't want to date him at all. The blonde teases, wondering if the prince is scared. He replies that everything is fine and he hopes to get along with him, then asks if Corey is happy with that answer. Shirena realizes that Haley has rather conflicting feelings about Swan, and soon the conversation turns to her. The guy asks if she knows Swan Hayden. Shirena asks if he's talking about her. The prince says he's heard of connections between Blanche's family and hers. Blanche replies that their relationship is purely related to their shared business. Therefore, this has nothing to do with her personally, although she admits that they did see each other often. But that doesn't mean they were close, and that's obvious. As a child, Swan was always with his father. While the adults were busy, he went to the training ground. It was there that Shirena sometimes ran into him during training. He was a handsome boy, but with a cold expression on his face, always dressed strictly and buttoned up to the nines. The exposed areas of his body were covered in terrible wounds, and that's how he would forever remain in her memory. She knew almost nothing about him except that look. It was difficult to approach him, and even more difficult to talk to him, because he simply ignored her attempts to communicate. So they never became friends. Although he at least pretended to listen to Hestia, Shirena remembered something else after that. In the original story, he was unlucky in winning Hestia's love, and although he was one of the main characters, he gave up on his feelings. The girl thinks that perhaps it's easier to forget about him altogether, since most of the male characters were real problems. But he immediately realizes that this is not entirely true. One only has to look at Haley and Corey. They are not at all like their novelistic prototypes and seem much more human. Shirena decides the romance may have simply been a failure. At that moment, the prince asks why the redhead is staring at him like that and whether she's fallen in love. The girl replies with disgust that she is not only looking at Haleopa and immediately thinks that she is too young and inexperienced to allow herself to be charmed by them. At this point, the teacher announces that the first practical test is beginning. The students immediately scatter, and Shirena is surprised at how quickly everyone has disappeared. She wonders where they are rushing to and whether they really don't value their own lives. But then he decides that this is even for the best because the exam, scholarship, and club funding are at stake. All of this must be hers from today on. Meanwhile, Corey notices footprints on the ground, and the prince says that a horde of slimes has definitely passed through here. Shirena asks Corey if he can burn all the slimes at once if she gathers them in one place. The guy replies, no problem. Then the girl mentions that she heard Haley used to hunt monsters, and he confirms. Since that's the case, Shirena asks him to find the slime boss, but not to put him into eternal sleep. The young man asks if she wants to catch him alive, and the girl answers in the affirmative. The guy agrees and says they'll see each other later. Shirena wishes him luck and assures him they'll catch lots of slimes. Corey suggests Shush follow his trail before he disappears. The girl replies that there's no need, as she'll lure them in. She asks for a minute and creates an illusory magic circle. One of the slimes immediately rushes towards him, and Corey notices that they have indeed arrived. Then he cries out that there is a whole crowd of them there and asks in surprise how Shushu did this and whether it is a magic circle. The girl explains that she used the circle to attract the slimes with their favorite scent. Corey is amazed, says it's incredible, and calls her amazing. Shirena replies that it's nothing special, and he can do it himself. She notices that everything worked out, and suggests hurrying before the slimes come to their senses and run away. The girl says that now it's Corey's turn, wishes him luck, and the guy asks him to just trust him. He starts using magic and burns all the slimes. Shirena looks at the blue flames, realizing that he is much stronger than her, and wondering how high the temperature is there, since the heat can be felt even from afar. Corey notices her condition and asks if it's too hot. He asks her to move away until it's over and casts a water shield on her. Shirena realizes how attentive he is and thanks him. In response, Corey only smiles softly. After a little while, he says that everything is ready and that there were so many slimes that there were 3 bags. Shirena notes that 10 pieces would be enough for a high score, but they have a whole mountain. Corey says there are still 20 minutes left in the exam and asks what they will do next. Shirena hands him the balloon and says he'll find out soon. Corey examines it and asks what it is and if she made it herself. The girl replies yes and explains that the ball catches monsters. She demonstrates how to use it by throwing the ball at a slime. Corey marvels, saying it's incredible. Picking up another ball, he notices the Shunibaran engraving and asks if he can keep it. Shirena agrees, saying he can collect it. The girl realizes that Corey seems cuter to her every day and thinks that he suits Hestia better than Haley because he is caring, smart, and talented. Corey asks if she plans to use this for the club project. Shirena replies that yes, they'll capture the monsters and release them on the replica of Mount Ogren. By studying their behavior, they will improve the club's effectiveness. At that moment, she notices Corey's smile. The girl asks why he's smiling like that. The guy replies that she's so much fun to be with and he doesn't even know what he'd do without her. Shirena thinks about what he said because she'd been called stupid before. At that moment, someone calls out loudly for Shirena West. Corey recognizes Haley's voice and assumes he has captured the slime boss. When Shirena runs up, she asks if he caught the monster, and Haley confidently replies that he did. He adds that it was a low-level monster, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Then he suddenly notices something and yells at Shirena to freeze. He tells her to stand still, and the girl asks if there are more dangerous monsters nearby. but Haley points at her and tells her to just come closer slowly. Sharena doesn't understand what's going on and asks why Prince Appa is acting like this. Haley points to her hand and asks why she needs that thing. The girl looks at the ball, and Corey clarifies that it is a monster ball and does not understand what the problem is. Sharena tells him not to worry and that she'll sort it out right now. Haley remembers the previous incident and starts complaining. When Sharena looks at him, he states that if she is going to use it again, he refuses. In response, the girl simply swings the ball and throws it towards the prince. Haley closes her eyes in horror, and at that very moment the ball catches someone. When he opens his eyes, then she sees a ball with slime inside on the floor. Sharena just sighs heavily. She whispers that she knows about his status as the crown prince and would not harm him or lock him in the ball because she does not want to disrespect the imperial family. Haley apologizes for the misunderstanding and asks why she is smiling like that. He also asks if she recorded it. Sharena replies that, of course she did. Haley says that's good because he has something to blackmail her with too. The girl, shocked, asks if he's talking about a music lesson. He confirms, but she reminds him that she mentioned deleting the recordings and asks him to be careful with his words. Haley replies that she should be careful too, since they already agreed. Corey remarks that he thought they didn't get along, but it looks like they're getting along just fine. Sharena and Haley immediately object in unison. The observers just laugh, commenting on how friendly they are. At that moment, the end of the first round is announced, and the students are asked to hand in their slime bags and prepare for the second. Sometime later, they sit down with their exam results. Some are overjoyed, while others are barely holding back tears. Sharena smiles, remembering how she was congratulated. The man said he had heard about receiving a scholarship for excellent final results. The girl understands that this was expected, but the praise is still pleasant. At this moment, someone turns to Sharena and asks if something good has happened. She replies that the holidays will start soon, and she'll be able to go home. Her friend agrees and says she's looking forward to it too. They rarely saw each other at school, but during the holidays, they will be able to meet every day, and that makes them happy. Hestia asks if Sharena will help her pack her things. She realizes she wants to stop her friend from relying on her so much. But perhaps it's also her fault. Since childhood, Hestia has constantly turned to Shush with requests. Sharena realizes that this is true because she shouldn't have talked about the younger ones from her past life and promised too much. She asks her friend to listen and says that from now on, Hestia will have to pack her things on her own. Sharena adds that they are no longer children and Hestia must learn to rely not only on her, but on herself as well. Hestia asks what this means, and Sharena replies that in order to achieve your goals, you need to be able to plan your own steps. When the girl tries to say something, the main character only replies that it's great and makes it clear that she understands her perfectly. She suggests starting by packing their bags themselves, then says she's going to a club and they'll see each other later. At this time, Hestia doubts whether there is any point in independence because her parents always said that she doesn't need it. A short time later, the main character is already at the club and Corey notices that the third pair of slime seems to be experiencing breeding season. He says a new group will appear soon and asks in surprise if this is the valley. The main character confirms and admits she only just noticed it. The lady recalls how Hestia's behavior had previously irritated her and wonders if she had been too harsh. But she quickly realizes it was necessary as she can't always be there. Sooner or later, they'll have to go their separate ways because everyone has their own path. Corey notices Shushu's thoughtfulness and asks if everything is okay. The girl replies that everything is fine and she's just summing things up. The young man apologizes for making her redo the report. The main character says that it is not difficult and that she cannot stay away. She asks Corey to bring her some sweets, and the guy immediately fulfills the request. He notices that the lady's hands are busy and offers to feed her, but suddenly stumbles. The cookie flies out of his hands, but the main character instantly jumps. She catches the cookie in her mouth, and the guy admiringly says it's cool. Sharena realizes she's done this many times before. Corey starts tossing cookies and praising her. But the main character screams, asking them to stop, otherwise they will simply waste their time. A little later, the girl reports that she's finished the project report. Thanks to Corey Appa and Haley Appa, she was able to collect all the samples, and she thanks them. Corey agrees and adds that the teacher in charge of the club never showed any interest in the project, even though it is very valuable. He thinks it's worth waiting for the club rankings next semester. The main character wonders if he's talking about him. After all, she had a hard time convincing Corey to join the club, and she turns to him. The girl asks if he'll continue going to the club next semester. At that moment, someone happily shouts that the lesson is over and it's time to go eat. Someone claims that there is meat for lunch today, but Corey lies with his face buried in his desk. Haley calls him, reminding him that the lesson is over and he can go to the cafeteria. But the young man falls back onto his desk, and his friend asks if he got enough sleep. The prince picks up Corey and grumbles that he is even lazy, calling it a real disaster. He jokes that he finally understands who Sharena is so lazy after. Corey reacts and asks if there's a club today. Haley replies that today is an even number, so yes. The guys apologize and say they want to have a productive and enjoyable time at the club. They suggest he go eat alone and get some candy. Corey replies that he's going to the club room and they'll see each other later. The prince throws the candies in a rage and is indignant that he was even waiting for him. On the way, Corey wonders when Haley started caring about him, since before they didn't care about each other. It seemed to him that he couldn't stand communicating with him, and he would never have thought that they would become friends. The young man wonders when they became close, and realizes that perhaps it was when the prince asked if he knew Shirena. After all, back then she was called capricious, frightening, and pessimistic. He recalls the lady asking what he would say. It was a new project codenamed, well, Just You Wait, Wolf, and the girl was wondering who he thought was right, her or the crown prince. When they argued, she would ask Corey whose side he was on, and now the young man just smiles at the memory. He understands that a lot happened thanks to Shushu, although there were more reasons. Entering the room, he sees a lady lying on the sofa and realizes that she is already here. She arrived straight after class, just like him, and upon closer inspection, Corey notices something strange. Everyone around is crazy about Hestia, admiring her beauty, but his attention is drawn to another. He wonders why he increasingly looks at Shusha. He enjoys watching her sleep and thinks he seems to have gotten used to her face. After some time, the main character wakes up with many braids on her head. She asks in surprise what it is, and Corey apologizes and explains that her hair was falling in her face. He realizes he shouldn't have touched her in the first place. She looked too cute, and once he touched her hair, he couldn't stop. He came to his senses only when all his hair was braided, and he thought it would be funny to see her reaction, but it was better to restrain himself. Corey apologizes and promises to unravel everything. The main character turns to him. She asks why she is so ugly, and if it is because her face is swollen from sleep. The girl says she's disgusted with herself. Corey realizes he's to blame and quickly replies that it's not that bad, and he'll fix it now. Unbraiding her hair, he says that everything is fine now, but the main character has her doubts. She claims that it hasn't gotten any better, and the young man looks at her with embarrassment. He says that Shushu is very beautiful now, and the girl is surprised. She gets embarrassed and asks why all of a sudden, because he can be honest with her. Corey asks if this is true, and the lady confirms. She understands that he really is a good man. If it were Haley in his place, he would have been teasing her for a long time. At that moment, Corey takes something out of his pocket. He asks to wait a minute and says that it is a gift. The main character, touching her ear, notices that the orange-shaped earrings are very beautiful. She is surprised by the gift because today is not her birthday. Corey explains that this is the answer to her earring and also the answer to the question. She recently asked about the club next semester, and he wanted to say right away that he would stay, but he was worried. He felt like his words needed some backing, and he wished the head of the magic club good luck in the future. The main character looks at him with embarrassment and wonders why he is like this today. His smile is dazzling and almost charming, which is dangerous for the heart, and she is more concerned with how naturally he does it. Shirena even wonders if he's sick, and then thanks Corey. She wants to say something else, but her stomach rumbles, and the guy asks if she hasn't had lunch. Corey says there's probably still food in the cafeteria and suggests they go. Lady replies that he hasn't eaten either and one meal is enough for her. Corey remembers the prince's words about her laziness and finally understands what he meant. He insists that they need to go eat right now. When the girl tries to object, the guy lifts her up with magic and says that lunch will soon be over. Lady thinks Corey has an overprotective side, but then she hears the bell ring. She remembers that she seemed to have left it in the room and asks Corey to wait. The girl says she needs to answer and asks him to get her a sandwich. Corey agrees, asks to hurry and leaves, and the voice greets Mrs. Shunabaran. The protagonist looks around and whispers to ask what happened, reminding her that she promised to call back if needed. The voice apologizes and says she was texting. He informs her that a high-ranking person wants to meet her and asks her what to say. The lady doesn't understand who he's talking about. Soon the students go home, and the main character wishes her friends a good holiday. She says they'll see each other next semester, and Haley wishes her the same. He reminds her that she promised a gastronomic tour. Lydia replies that she has already made a menu and will definitely try Miss Bakery's strawberry cake. The boy says the apple tart is better, and Corey admits he likes the grape tart. Haley declares she'll definitely win the bet this time and tells everyone to get ready. Shirena is skeptical, and Corey thinks they'll have to live to see that day. They approach the crown prince and tell him that the carriage is ready, and he says goodbye. The main character says goodbye to him, and Corey tells Shushu to go because he will be late due to business. The girl is surprised by what's going on during the holidays, but Corey assures her that it's just a meeting. He asks to call if he needs anything, and the lady agrees, saying that they will see each other later. She thinks it's a little sad to leave, but then she remembers the original. There, she should have stayed away from Haley and Corey, and she wonders if she got too close. But the long-awaited holidays are starting, and she needs to figure out how to spend them with pleasure. Sometime later, the three are riding in a carriage, and Harun complains that she is shaking a lot. He asks if everything is okay, and the main character replies that his things are about to fall on her head. She is outraged by his carelessness, and asks how he can be like that. After all, he could have sent the luggage by mail, as she did. Harun justifies himself by saying that he didn't expect so many things. Then he reproaches Shusha for not visiting him, although he waited for her every day. The girl replies that if he wanted to meet so much, he could have come himself. The young man asks if she has any idea how many times he came and if she was avoiding him on purpose. Shirena says that this is not true, and Hestia adds that Shushu complained about him. Harun is surprised, but immediately says that for him she is still the sweetest, most charming, and most beautiful. He calls her to him, calling her little sister. The main character is indignant and asks him to stay put, but he complains about the injustice. Harun says that soon she will grow up and leave home, and they will no longer be able to hug like this, so they need to cherish these moments now. Shirena says she doesn't have a boyfriend, but even so, he remains the last on the list of those who can get her hugs. The young man replies that the entire world is a pack of predators surrounding his precious Chushu. If she finds a boyfriend, his heart will break, and he will fall into an eternal sleep of sorrow. And her little brother is already going through a tough time, his heart aching with pain. The main character realizes that her older brother will be back soon. She tells the guy not to worry, because she's going to live alone. The girl can't tell if Harun is being serious or joking, but she still won't have a boyfriend. In her past life, no one was interested in her romantically, and neither is in this one. Hestia plays the central role in the novel. When boys approached her, they simply asked her to deliver a letter to Hestia. And the girl feels something changed even when she was 5 years old. That's when it all began. At that moment, Hestia turns to Harun and asks if he heard. Shushu isn't planning on flirting with the guys, so there's nothing to worry about. The main character thinks they should stop, because it's all her fault. Harun says it's even better this way. Even if Shushu doesn't have a boyfriend, they'll always be together. Just imagine how good it will be for them together. She silently begs her brother to stop, because it sounds scary. Hestia tells Harun Appa that Shushu will live with her. The young man declares he won't back down. The protagonist feels tired and hopes to return home soon. At this time, Corey is heading somewhere and notices that after the students leave, the school has become surprisingly quiet. It's a pity he can't stay for the holidays. He realizes it's time to go to class. There's still plenty of time. When he comes in, someone says that Hube has arrived. It turns out that this is the son of the Supreme Lord Lunasha, Evans Lunasha, a third-year student. Corey asks if he brought that thing. He replies, surprised that he really just got straight to the point without even saying hello. Then he asks if he's upset. The young man sighs in displeasure and pushes his hand away. And he says that since the stones are already here, it's worth finishing as quickly as possible. The interlocutor smiles and says that, as expected, Corey's magic stones, they are simply amazing. He can't contain his delight every time he sees them. Corey replies irritably that if everything is fine, he should hurry up. He hands over the box. He adds that Shunabaran's trinkets are hard to come by, and he barely managed to secure hers at auction. Corey says yes, he's a good man. Evans declares that a compliment from Hube is the highest reward, his heart pounding with excitement. But Corey simply says he's leaving. Evans immediately adds that there is something else and asks if he will listen. Corey wonders if he's going to sell him another cheap job under the guise of Shunabaran's work. This guy is scary. It's no coincidence that he became a civil servant at such a young age. He has a forced smile on his face. He asks what's going on, and if Corey isn't curious, Corey replies that he doesn't need anything and leaves. Better to leave before he starts pulling any punches. When Evans calls him again, Corey closes the door. He grins. And indeed, he's gone. The smile fades. He says the boy has changed since they last met, but he's not upset. Hube loves Shunabaran so much, and he wanted to tell her that he'll soon meet her in person. He wonders if he already knows. A little later, someone addresses the lady and gentleman. They are servants, they greet them. At the same moment, someone else runs out. To her brother Harun and sister Shu. The main character joyfully hugs the boy. Haru turns to Karim. He asks why his little sister is taking so long, as he missed her terribly. She apologizes and says Hestia gave her a ride home. Harun asks Karim if he doesn't notice him and doesn't want his older brother to hug him. He replies that he doesn't really want to. Then Harun says he doesn't feel like it either and leaves, asking them not to follow him. One of the maids hugs the master and tells him how much she missed him. Let him pass. She made his favorite apple pies. The young man, almost in tears, says that only Grandma Lyda is happy to see him and thanks her. She replies that he is already a young gentleman. Then he approaches the main character and tells her that her parents are waiting for her. She should come in quickly. Harun grumbles that this is too much. The girl tells Karim to ignore her and suggests they go eat some pies. The boy happily agrees. Harun screams that these kids are completely out of their minds and asks if they have a conscience. But the heroine runs away with her younger brother. Later, someone says they almost got into trouble. Harun adds that, fortunately, everything ended well. His father says that's a relief. And that they have no problems at the academy. Mother asks Shusha how she's doing. And was the school food tasty? The girl replies that yes, everything was great. Harun tells his mother that no one asked him about this. The woman is surprised. The heroine thinks how nice it is to be at home. Unlike her previous life, she feels comfortable and calm here. Of course, that's how it should be. But there are some things that worry me. For example, all these expensive delicacies are way out of my budget. The girl notices that her mother's hair has become thicker and shinier, her skin is clear, her jewelry is new, and her dress is fashionable. Mom obviously spent a lot of money on herself. She tells Shusha that she looks prettier. Then he suggests going to the mall for shopping. The heroine replies that there are already enough clothes. Sharena thinks that for now, everything will remain as is. Even the food. The whole family is together today, no need to ruin the atmosphere. The maid asks if the lady would like dessert first. She will bring apple pie. The heroine thanks Lida, and she says her pie is delicious. But after taking a bite, she wonders if Lida is trying to poison her. Then someone says Lida mistook the sugar for salt. Later the maid asks how the lady managed to eat all that. The heroine replies that Lida has poor eyesight. She couldn't even see her brother. The maid promises to keep an eye on her. She cares for everyone and treasures Lida very much. It's only thanks to her that she remains part of the West family. The heroine says that no matter how bad the situation gets, they can't let Lida go. She's served them for too long. The woman says that Miss Shushu is already so grown up, despite her height, and he offers a special massage to help her grow. The heroine thinks she's about to have her legs twisted. The woman asks why she has such toned calves and that she will have to get rid of them. The heroine is hurt and quickly changes the subject. She asks Emily if something happened at home. And weren't mom's expenses too high? She replies that it's not within her authority. The heroine notices the reaction and asks if the money was taken from the savings. It's clear from the maid's face that her mother ordered her to remain silent, but everything is clear anyway. The heroine says it's too late, and she'll ask Krim anyway. He'll tell her everything. The maid apologizes and wishes goodnight. After some time, the heroine knocks on her younger brother's door and asks if she can come in. He thinks she came to tell him a bedtime story. She replies that yes, but first she wants to ask something. Asks if he remembers what she asked for before the academy. He thinks about the shirt that Lida burned with an iron, and he says that his parents didn't find out about it. The heroine says that's good, but she asked me to keep an eye on my mother's spending. He apologizes and asks if she will be angry that he failed. Later, the heroine slams the door and laughs nervously. In front of her are receipts for purchases in the West family's name and reports from her father's secretary. She throws papers around and screams that she is in shock. Mom spends her rainy day savings on clothes. Her income remains the same, but her debt has grown. This is dangerous. If this continues, we won't be able to pay the interest. The heroine says she can't rely on her mother to handle the budget, so she'll have to work even harder. I'll have to take all the orders for Shunibaran and start tomorrow. First, you need to check your email in case there are any new requests. Looking into the magic ball, she remembers Cal's words about the meeting. It says he hopes Miss Shunibaran will arrange a schedule for the meeting. She had an appointment with Lunasha. This was a gold mine, and she couldn't miss it. After a while, she walks down the corridor and asks where her mother is. He comes into the room and asks if she's there. Mom hides behind the curtains. The girl asks if she's in the living room. The woman understands that this tone will not end well. I'll have to pretend she's very busy. But the heroine says that she checked the schedule. Her mother is free, and asks to give her at least a minute. The woman feels the breath of immersion into eternal sleep and agrees. Then she shows the dress and says she bought it for Shu. After all, she's almost a bride. The heroine thanks him and says it's sweet, but she adds that her mother knows that's not why she came. Mom asks what she wants to hear. The girl replies that she already knows. She hands over the receipts and says there are too many. Mom really doesn't want to say anything. After all, she spent all her savings on an emergency, although she was asked not to touch them. Mom is surprised. Is it really that much? The heroine replies that Mom said everything is under control and there are plenty of expenses. The woman says that she is very sorry because after she and Haroon left, she was terribly lonely. Only shopping somehow filled the emptiness, so she mentally apologized to her precious children for such a wayward mother. The main character realizes she's hitting her right in the heart, but she can't stop. A slight change of tactics is needed. Luckily, her mother in this life is just as caring for her children as she was in the past, so the girl decides to rekindle her mother's love. The girl instantly switches to angel mode, and the woman asks in surprise what happened. The little girl timidly asks if her mother loves her. She replies that of course she does, because she is her mother, and the girl is her only daughter. Then the heroine asks how she can believe this if she could end up being sold. The woman, shocked, asks what she's talking about. The girl explains that the family's finances are in dire straits, and if nothing is done, all savings will soon disappear. And what awaits the daughter of an impoverished family? The woman is overcome with horror. The heroine screams that she will be forcibly married to a rich man, and she's not alone. Haroon and even Karim are also facing marriages of convenience for the sake of money. The woman immediately assures him that this won't happen and promises Shusha that she will never allow it. The heroine realizes she's hit the mark, and it's time to end it. The girl hugs her mother and tells her how scared she is. She dreamed she was sold and kicked out of her home because of poverty, and they lived in cold and hunger. The woman asks not to worry and says that she will do everything that her daughter asks, and this time let her believe her. After this, the heroine asks if it is possible to return everything she bought up to today. Then he says that he will trust his mother, asks her to take all the things and give them to her so that she can return everything. Shirena realizes she's inexperienced in shopping. Getting every last coin back will be difficult, so she'll have to turn to Sister Hazel. When these problems subside, it will be Shunibanen's turn. After some time, the heroine is already heading somewhere and notices that she is in the center of the capital, where there are too many people. She doesn't like walking around like this. Even if the chances are slim, she doesn't want to be recognized. There's nothing else to do. The meeting place is somewhere around here. Approaching the corner, she wonders if it really is right behind it. Turning the corner, the lady freezes, seeing a luxurious building in front of her. Could this really be the headquarters of the Lunasha Trade Guild? It's the tallest building in the empire, and the feeling of unease is no joke. She knew the offer was good, but not that good. This caused concern, and soon someone greeted Mrs. Shunibaren. The man invites her inside, and the girl sees that, as expected, it is incredibly beautiful here. The servant announces that the deputy will be arriving soon and asks the lady to sit down. She sits down at the table and realizes how far she's come, feeling awkward. The Lunasha Merchant Guild is the best in the empire. Their products are always quality-focused, which is why their business has soared. In recent years, they had monopolized the market throughout the empire, and the secret of their success was obvious. Recently, the only one who was promoted to Supreme Agent appeared, but the girl never found out who it was. It was as if he'd known from the start that they'd be looking for him. Previously, she would have had to go to great lengths to meet Lunasha. Their request for a meeting was made in complete secrecy, and the girl believes that this was reasonable. After all, this is just a client who will bring her wealth, so why is it so hot here? The lady realizes she's sweating and considers removing her hood, but this is Lunash headquarters, and revealing her identity is forbidden. When she checked the magic sphere, there were cameras everywhere. She realizes she can't trust them. The negotiations will clearly be unusual, so all that remains is to wait. But a little more time passes, and it becomes unbearable. She's still being watched, so she decides to take off her cloak. At that very moment, someone enters the room. The guy apologizes to Mrs. Shunibaren for being late, and the heroine is at a loss. Had she really waited all this time for this? Had he really been waiting for her to take off her cloak? She tried so hard to remain incognito, and this guy caught her like a child. It's unsettling. She thinks that if she had known about this turn of events, she would have spent more on transformation potions. But could this really be a representative of Lunasha? He looks too young. The young man confirms that everything is correct. He really is a representative, and at first, everyone is surprised. He then asks to be allowed to formally introduce himself. His name is Evans Lunasha, a representative of the Lunasha Guild, and he is pleased that the lady has agreed to meet. The heroine asks again if he really is Evans, and realizes that she has already heard this name. Evans is one of the main male characters in the novel, about whom very little was said in the plot. Just that he's the son of an influential aristocrat. Just think, he's from the Lunasha family. She can't remember it in the story, and decides to take a closer look at what he was really like. At this moment, the young man addresses her as a sister, and the heroine is surprised at what kind of sister she is to him. The boy says that Shunibaren is very beautiful, and asks if he can call her sister. He addresses her again in the same way, and the heroine notices his cold gaze. She realizes there's a warm smile on his face, but it's deceptive. This guy is dangerous. She decides to quickly end the conversation and leave, but her interlocutors immediately suggest getting straight to the point. She wonders what exactly he wants to say, and becomes increasingly convinced that he was deliberately waiting for her to open up. The guy smiles and says it's wonderful, that the lady is so sweet and he likes her. Then he offers to look at the document. Taking the paper, the heroine asks if this is really a contract, and if it is true that he wants to sign it at the first meeting. They're talking about a long-term agreement, even though she only came for a one-time order. The guy asks if she'll really refuse without even reading it. He asks her not to act rashly and to carefully study the contract, assuring her that she will like it. The heroine agrees, but asks him to step aside. She reads the lines carefully and realizes that for the first time, she is holding Lunash's real contract in her hands. The lady is involuntarily surprised, and her interlocutor asks what is wrong and whether something is bothering her. She replies that, on the contrary, the terms are too tempting. It's a prestigious contract with 1,000 gold pieces up front and another 100 on top. Pay depends on the volume of work. This will not only save her from bankruptcy, but also ensure a peaceful life until she finally falls into eternal slumber. The conditions are extremely favorable, and it all seems frighteningly tempting. The guy notices that the lady seems to be happy with everything, and asks if he should sign. The heroine understands that she shouldn't make hasty decisions. Something dangerous lurks behind that smile. She apologizes and says the offer is too unexpected. It's hard for her to commit herself solely to the Lunasha Guild, and besides, she'll be returning to the academy soon. The interlocutor asks if she refuses. The lady answers affirmatively and says she's sorry. She wonders if he knew she was going to be rejected. She doesn't like all this, and she needs to leave. The girl says that since that's all, she'll go. But when the guy calls her sister again, she stops abruptly. She says that she is a public figure and asks not to call her that because it makes her uncomfortable. As she says goodbye, she reaches for the door handle, but at that very moment, she feels resistance. The guy doesn't let her open the door and says that it seems like the lady didn't like his sincere feelings. The heroine turns around and asks what he is doing, feeling afraid. She sees his cold expression and is amazed at how quickly he has changed. He says it's weird because he thought she'd like it and she seemed to mention she liked younger guys. The girl doesn't understand what he's talking about and wonders if he's angry because he's forbidden to call her sister. This guy is a real psycho, and he is one of the dangerous male characters in front of her. The lady realizes she must run, but as luck would have it, she doesn't have a single ball monster. She's looking for anything useful, and all she has is a magic device detector in the form of a sphere. With nothing else to do, she decides to blind him with a flash to escape. But at that moment, the guy just pulls the hair clip out of his hair, and in an instant, he crushes the sphere. The heroine realizes in shock that he's broken it. She realizes that this hairpin can easily put a person into eternal sleep. Seeing him quickly tie up his hair, she realizes how dangerous this psycho is. He's truly frightening. The guy comes closer and says that indeed, calling her sister was wrong. Then he asks if it's because he's actually older, and grabs her by the hair. He pronounces her real name, Sharina West. The heroine is shocked to realize that he knows her. She asks if he knew everything from the start. He replies that he did. It becomes clear to her that this is logical, and she tries to understand where she made a mistake. The Lunasha Guild is the best at finding information. Money has opened many doors for them, both for revenge and for business. Whatever the pay, she never took orders that went against Lunash. She wonders if this has ever happened before, but she understands that she needs to think about it when she is free. The heroine hits the guy and rushes to the door, realizing that she must get out at any cost. But the door won't budge. The other man calmly says that only he can open it. He adds that he is in pain and that Miss Shunibaran's blow was quite strong. She thinks she doesn't care and hits him again, ripping the pin out of his hair. Then he knocks the guy down, and he falls to the floor. He says it was dangerous. He asks if his head is okay, but at that moment Sharina puts a hairpin to his throat. She says that she doesn't want to see him anymore and orders him to open the door immediately. The guy replies with a smile that he will think about it if the lady signs the contract. The main character is horrified to think how he can smile even now. This guy really is crazy. The interlocutor calmly says that he is just a high school student and that waving sharp objects is dangerous. Sharina understands that he hasn't even flinched. Even if she manages to escape, the problems he's caused will still be there. She was exposed by the son of influential aristocrats, and it was easy for him to take revenge on her. He may still be a student, but he probably already has power even at school, and even running away won't save her. He will find her even from underground, which means he will have to look for a compromise. The lady says she agrees, extends her hand to the guy, apologizes, and promises to listen to him. Then he suggests they go up. Meanwhile, Hestia asks over the comm if Shushu has gone for a stroll around the city. She asks if she'll be back soon. The man replies that he hopes so, since she didn't say where she was going. He adds that if Hestia is bored, she can come over and they can have fun together. The girl replies that she wants to spend time with Shushu, not Harun Oppa. The guy says okay, and suggests that she try to contact Shushu again, after which he ends the conversation. Hestia wonders since when she hasn't been able to contact Sharina, and why is she somewhere without her? At this point, the main character asks if he spoke about Hestia. The guy replies that yes, he liked her, so he followed her, and that's how he noticed the girl. He did some investigating, and realized that Sharina was the one he'd been looking for. The lady thinks that since it's about Hestia, he wants her to bring them together. She knows she tried so hard to avoid this, but now she really will have to become a matchmaker. The girl asks what will happen now that he knows who she is, and asks what he wants. The interlocutor replies that nothing. The heroine doesn't understand what he means. The guy says that now he likes Sharina, and she has settled in his tender heart. Sharina, shocked, wonders why he'd do this. He continues, saying that one of her clients, he owns the business that his father once ran, considering it a simple hobby, but one day her daddy fell on hard times. The heroine realizes he's talking about his father's problems. She doesn't understand why he's so happy. The young man smiles and says he'll give her a choice. The heroine asks what he's talking about, noticing that his mood is jumping like a roller coaster. He admits that his father values her abilities highly and has instructed him to lure her into the guild's elite. He believes that even enemies can be taken advantage of and warns that if she signs the contract, her life will be in danger. Therefore, he forbids her to contact the Lunasha Guild and immediately breaks the contract. It shows that those who sign receive a mark to forever bind their lives to the Lunasha Guild. He's not going to go into details, but the guild is up to some shady business, and the lady could get hurt. He likes her, but he doesn't want that kind of future for her. Instead, he suggests she forget about the contract and listen to his proposal. The heroine is surprised, and the guy says that if she doesn't like it, she'll go home as if nothing happened. He knows what she is capable of, so he asks her to think carefully before answering. Sharina asks what he means by think, and whether he's planning to use her like his father. She recalls that in the novel, Evan's always struck from the back. The young man assures that his thoughts are as pure as holy water, but at that moment he feels pain in the mark. He falls. The heroine, shocked, turns to the sunbae, but the guy only calls Shirena West. He asks to be saved. Meanwhile, Hestia tells her friend what a wonderful walk they had. There are so many delicious things around, and she praises Shusha for noticing this cafe. The heroine replies that they are indeed lucky and is glad that Hest is happy. But Hestia asks why they see each other so rarely. She thought they'd see each other more often during the holidays, but Shushu is always busy. The girl explains that it's not like that. She's just running errands for her mother. Hestia immediately asks, is she dating Corey or Haley Appa? The heroine immediately replies no. Hestia says she heard them agreeing to go to a cafe during the holidays. The lady replies that yes, she promised them, but they haven't gone anywhere yet. Silence falls between them, and the main character looks away. Hestia asks if Shusha is listening. She flinches and asks again what she said. Hestia says that they finally went out together, but her friend is in the clouds and doesn't hear her at all. She asks if Shushu really doesn't care that much, since it's as if her thoughts are elsewhere. The heroine replies that this is not true, she was just thinking, and apologizes. Shirena once again apologized to Hestia in her thoughts, realizing she had a lot on her plate. She felt uneasy about being constantly questioned, so she offered to meet. But in reality, she is now carrying out Even's orders and is already looking at her goal. She realizes that just 3 days after her first visit to the guild, she signed an agreement with Evans. No matter how much she thinks about it, it all seems pointless, because now she's in the hands of the Lunashaw family. If she had not accepted his proposal, all her plans would have fallen apart in an instant. In any case, she would have been plunged into an eternal sleep in poverty and hunger, and such an ending does not suit her. Worse, she could be forced into eternal sleep, and she would have no choice at all. Besides, he really scared her back then. Even though he had the medicine, the fear still remained. The guy said that, by revealing the guild's secrets to her, he triggered the poison-producing tattoo. If she didn't want to end up the same way, she couldn't sign the contract with Lunashaw. The head of Lunashaw did something cruel even to his own son, and it is clear that there is no room for healthy relationships in this family. She's also considering penalties for violating the agreement. Evans recently assured her that their agreement would be free of offensive tattoos. Then the heroine said that for violating the conditions, the penalty is a free kick to the butt. The guy was surprised, and she asked if there was something wrong with him. The lady thinks this is fair, because she is too soft-hearted. But at that very moment she notices that the target is leaving. His route barely changes, and he needs to observe for a while longer. After that, she tells Hestia she's full, and suggests they go for a walk. Hestia replies that she barely touched her food, and the heroine says that she probably started eating less after the academy. But the friend declares that she wants cake, and they still move on. After some time, the heroine watches the man from afar, and thinks that it all looks strange. He's stuck in the office today. Evans tells me to keep watching because he'll be out soon. Shirena replies that it's easy to say since she's not a machine, and asks if it's possible to use a magical motion sensor. She was terribly tired and hadn't really eaten, keeping an eye on this guy all the time, and, by the way, she was very hungry. The guy agrees and allows them to take a break. Shirena hands him a sandwich and says she got one for him too. But he refuses, adding that the lady is already magnificent. After all, she's accomplished a tremendous amount of work in such a short time. The heroine thinks this is strange. She replies that she is simply earning her money and notices that the guy has become calmer. The more often they see each other, the less often she sees him smile. If Evie was always so serious, what kind of life did he live? And what happened since he swore to take revenge on his own father? She asks him to tell her exactly how he plans to take revenge. Evans asks if she wants to know his plans. She replies that she might be looking for a way to change his mind, since they only discussed an agreement. The guy asks if she wants him to refuse, and the lady realizes she said it out loud. She said she meant risk because if he fails, she will be in danger too. Evans sighs and says his father's business was built on fraud. He will only make it obvious, cause a scandal, and the father will ruin himself by going bankrupt. Without knowing the honest way, he will get into even more trouble, and then Evans will catch him and send him to jail. The heroine asks if he'll stop there. He replies that he absolutely won't, because aristocrats aren't kept in prison for long. While the father is in custody, he will take all his property, and after his release, he will have nothing left. Thus begins his great revenge. The heroine realizes this is only the beginning, and wonders how much he hates his father. She looks through the binoculars and says that it seems that the man has left. Evans asks if he's finally moved, and it looks like the target has left the office. The heroine sees him already on the street and confirms that the target is leaving the building. She reports that he turned left into the alley, leading to the slums. Evans tells her to get ready quickly. She gathers her things and says that it's time to go down, but then asks what's going on, because the target is leaving. The next moment, the guy picks her up. Shirena, shocked, demands to be put back in her place. He replies that they won't have time to go up the stairs and stands on the edge of the building. The heroine, horrified, asks why he is standing on the edge of the roof. The guy just asks for patience and takes a step into the void. The next moment they are flying down rapidly, and the girl screams, calling him crazy. As he falls, he lets go of her. Shirena wonders if he's deliberately decided to get rid of her. Evans takes a magic circle on paper out of his pocket, and she panics, thinking that he should not let her go. He tears the leaf, and they land softly on the ground. Evans tells them to hurry, because now they'll have time to catch up with their target. Shirena asks him to go first, because her legs can't take it anymore. The guy looks at her, then throws her over his shoulders and says that they need to move. He asks where is the person who wanted to do everything perfectly, and asks her to hold on tight. As they run further, the guy asks which alley it was. The lady replies, the left one. Turning the corner, they realize the man is gone. Evans asks if they've really missed him. The heroine asks what to do, and whether it's worth waiting for the next chance. But the guy immediately replies that no. He asks her to pretend to be asleep for a second. She does so, not realizing what he has in mind. The young man immediately turns to his sweet sisters with a smile and asks for help. The women smile in surprise and ask again if he is really talking to them specifically. He seems to have gone crazy, because they don't look like sweet sisters at all. The heroine realizes that Evans is playing the sweetheart role again. One of the women says that he is still a minor and asks what happened and how to help. The guy explains that his sister got drunk and passed out, and they can't get home because their father took the keys. He adds that his sister shouldn't sleep on the cold floor, and the women immediately become touched, calling him a good brother. The young man says he saw his father heading that way and asks if they saw him. The woman asks what he was wearing. The guy replies that he was wearing a black hat, a hooked nose, and a dark red coat. One of the ladies says she thinks she saw someone like that, and he went to Yasur's hut. Another doubts whether minors will be allowed in there. The woman is worried because the boy has come all this way for his father, and he also has an older sister. The young man agrees and asks where to go. They explain to him that Yasur's hut is 2 blocks away. He thanks his dear sisters. Moving on, the heroine says he behaved terribly. The guy replies that if she were even slightly as good, she wouldn't have been discovered. Shirena thinks about what he is talking about, because without her game he would not have learned anything. Soon they find themselves in front of the establishment, and Evans suggests going inside. Upon entering, the heroine realizes that it looks like a nightclub. Evans notices that the place is more spacious than he thought, and asks where to look for the man. The lady replies that it doesn't matter, they just need to look. Looking around, she sees cheerful people. Everyone is drinking, dancing, and singing. In every world, the night is the same. She almost never danced, except for occasional part-time jobs at events. Evans turns to Shush, and she asks if he found the target. The guy replies that yes, he is sitting at that table, but there are too many people around. If you approach them directly, they will attract attention, so it is better to make noise and distract everyone. The heroine asks what he means. The guy replies that it will take a little time. Shirena thinks about how he is going to make noise from the recluse who has lived a quiet life. Besides, there are a lot of people at the table, and simple fuss will not be enough. She doubts whether it will work out, even though everything is possible for money. At that moment, she notices the dancer and decides that she will do it. It's a blow to her pride, so she wants to make sure his plan works. Evans asks what's wrong with her face, then says everything is fine and they can begin. The heroine heads towards the stage, convincing herself that she can handle it. She was once terribly shy, but she overcame it and received her first salary. Now she only has to think about money. She apologizes to the dancers. Then she turns to her sweet sisters, asks them to clear the dance floor, and says that she came to have fun because it's so boring here. She suggests making some noise and promises to teach everyone how to party. The heroine asks who is with her and calls everyone to stand up and shout together. She takes off her jacket, twirls it, and starts making strange movements. People laugh and say that she twitches like a fish on dry land. And it's incredibly funny. Others join in the laughter and ask what kind of dance this is. The heroine thinks that she will now plunge into eternal sleep from shame, but she cannot stop and ruin everything. Money comes first, and she shouts for everyone to sing and dance together. Evans, watching this, starts laughing. Soon, someone in the club asks what's going on and why there are so many people. One says they should have come earlier, because the fish dance blew the floor up. Another asks what the hell that is. Someone complains that he has only stepped away for a short time, and advises to study while there is a chance, to watch carefully and remember. After some time, the heroine sits behind boxes and thinks that she wants to plunge into eternal sleep and fall through the ground. Shirena West thinks she's crazy and doesn't understand why she chose dancing when she'd rather fight. When she worked with a mask on, the shame wasn't as strong. Now she thinks that if someone recognizes her, she will break down and want to be buried just like that. At that moment, someone calls out to the lady. Evans says she's here, and it was thanks to her that he learned everything he needed, so she did a great job. He suggests they leave. The heroine struggles to her feet, and then almost falls. There is a silence between them, and the lady says that she seems to have spent all her energy on dancing. The guy asks her to get up, but she screams that she can't do it anymore, and feels like her legs are giving out. At that moment, her leg gives way and she falls onto his back. He asks if she's going to climb up. The lady replies that she does. A short while later, they're already walking down the street, and Shirena apologizes for disturbing them. The guy says that everything is fine, and adds that they need to get out of here as soon as possible. He reminds her that she can play along again and pretend to be his sleeping sister. Lady agrees. The girl realizes it's better to think positively. She's already exhausted, and he's already carried her twice. Suddenly, the lady smells fried meat, and even says it must be from a street yakitori vendor. Shirena asks if he really has that many delicious things, and adds that there are vegetable and ham kebabs there. She notices the chicken, then the fish, and wonders if he really has everything. Evans suddenly laughs and says, "That's wonderful." The heroine asks him what he's talking about. The young man remembers her dance. He says he can't forget her incomparable performance. The girl asks why he's laughing. The guy replies that it's nothing, and asks if she's hungry and wants some chicken kebab. The lady replies that she's not hungry, and asks him not to look at her like that. A little later, the girl is already holding 2 kebabs and wondering why he bought both. She wonders if he did it out of generosity, or because his hands are full. She holds one out and offers him something to eat. The guy replies that he bought both for her, so let her eat it herself. The heroine asks why. He says he thought one wouldn't be enough for her. Shirena wonders if he is hinting that she eats a lot. The guy adds that she's growing and can eat as much as she wants. Shirena thinks he's referring to her height. Then the heroine begins to choke him and orders him to eat. He replies that he has no appetite. The girl screams that he's been hungry all day and needs to eat. The guy asks her to stop because the sauce is dripping down his back. Shirena says he can use magic, so he shouldn't worry, and eat. At that very moment, the guy picks her up, and the heroine wonders if he's really angry. She decides it's because she was fidgeting too much and turns to Evans. But when he approaches, the girl realizes that she was mistaken. Evans just leans closer, surprising her, and takes a bite of the shashlik. He then asks if she's happy. The embarrassed heroine replies that she is. The girl is shocked and wonders why she's making such a face. Eating just one piece seems strange. Could it be because he's a character in a novel? Shirena thinks maybe he just doesn't like to eat. She finds it hard to believe that he chose only vegetables from such a delicious meal. It's strange, because she never saw him eat. He only drank milk or water. Besides, he used to constantly take some strange powders. After eating 2 skewers, the lady thinks that the medicines looked harmless and wonders if they were drugs. Evans turns to shush, but when she asks what is wrong, he suddenly falls silent. Shirena asks him to talk, and he admits that he was going to make her work for him until he achieved his goals. The heroine understands that he really was going to break the agreement. The lady asks what this is all about. The guy replies that he changed his mind. The information he learned today is enough, and if she wants to give up everything, she can say so at any moment. He adds that dirty work doesn't suit her. Sometime later, the heroine stands in the kitchen, squeezing lemons. She recalls his words about how money is important, but useless if it harms one's life. She has a good family, and the best is yet to come, so she needs to live life to the fullest. The girl thinks that Evans is not as terrible as in the original story. The author is strange, and the lady doesn't understand why everything is so confusing. Haley, Corey, and Evans seem completely different to her than in the original. At that moment, someone tells the lady that she's especially sweet and cheerful today. The guy asks if she's making juice, especially for her brother, and after all, she's his favorite little sister. The young man immediately drinks the juice and raves about how freshly squeezed it is and how incredibly delicious it is. The heroine screams, realizing she made it for Evans, and wonders why the idiot drank it all. After drinking the juice, the guy almost faints and realizes how difficult the life of a healthy lifestyle enthusiast is. Kareem, shocked, says that his sister has put him into eternal sleep again, and then screams for his brother to wake up because he cannot leave them so early. Sometime later, the heroine goes to the guild again. She knocks, and Evans tells her to come in. The girl opens the door, and he repeats for her to come in even though she is already inside. The guy says the lady asked for time to think, but it seems she made up her mind too quickly. The decision seemed easy for her, but the girl replies that this is not the case, and she is not going to give up. Evans agrees that she's not one to give up, then asks in shock what the hell she's talking about. The main character replies that she is saving him, because if she leaves, the guild will not leave him alone. He says that it is, and wonders if it isn't easier for her to deal with people like him, since he only wanted to give her the easy way out. He still intends to finish what he started. The heroine says she has enough to do without him, and then asks if he orchestrated the problems with her mother. The guy replies yes, and asks how long ago she figured it out. He asks if she wants to continue collaborating, even knowing this. The lady realizes it would be wiser for her to stay away from the Lunasha Guild representative, but after getting to know him better, she realizes he's not as terrible as he was in the original story, so she's not going to break the contract, and honestly says that no one pays as much as he does. Money is power, and gold glitters beautifully. The guy sighs and agrees. The girl understands that this is precisely why she won't quit, and she's also wondering where he'll get that kind of money. Shirena says he's made her family's situation worse, so there's nothing he can do. They decide to postpone formalities until his revenge is complete. Evans smiles and says he'll tell her about his plans for the day then. She replies that she's listening, and he asks her to first review and sort the documents. The lady is shocked, wondering why there are so many of them. After a while, she finishes the job and realizes she's finally done it. The guy suggests they grab a bite to eat and leave. The heroine takes out the food and, looking at the packaging, notices that these are those delicious sandwiches, wishing her bon appetit. But, looking at him, she sees that he's eating the powder again. The girl realizes she remembered to put the necessary item in her bag and hands him the bottle. He asks what it is, and she replies that it's a snack, just some healthy juice. She says there's nothing strange about it and that he doesn't seem to like chewing, so she tried her best. But he replies that's nonsense, because his supplement treats pain, indigestion, reduces stress, and provides all the vitamins. He asks why he needs these strange juices, and what about the carbohydrates, then simply stares at the silver color of his supplement. The heroine exclaims that it's more like medication than food, and the guy says fine. He asks if she made the juice herself. She grabs the bottle from the table and asks him to give it to her if he doesn't like it, because then she'll drink it herself. Silence falls between them, and she realizes he never intended to drink it. He only wanted to take it out of politeness. The lady puts the juice back on the table and tells him that if he doesn't want it, he can just throw it away. She thinks it's foolish to continue to care about him, but at that moment, Evans thanks her. He asks her not to do this again, as it puts him in an awkward position. People who give him gifts without reason usually turn out to be schemers or perverts, so in his opinion, the lady is simply shameless. The heroine asks him again what he said and suggests throwing everything away and not taking anything else from her, since he's the worst of the two. When he finally drinks the juice, she realizes he's not as easily thrown off balance as Haruna. It's good that she remade the drink on Emily's advice. She asks him to reduce his intake of the powder, as constant medication will ruin his health. May he live longer and not give up. After all, he's her precious money bag and can't fall into eternal sleep until he pays her back. Evans asks if she really thinks so, and she replies that he's a rich and generous boss. He gives bonuses for hard work, and is simply amazing. At that moment, there's a knock on the door and an announcement that the CEO is looking for him. The guy frowns and orders him in. The servant apologizes for the disturbance. He informs her that the director wishes to discuss future contracts and requests her immediate presence. Evans agrees with a smile and tells Miss Shinabaran that he will be gone for a while. Shirena thinks she'll never get used to his abrupt changes of appearance and wonders how many masks he has. He whispers to her to close the door and stay in the room until he returns. The guy leaves, and the heroine feels uneasy. She sits down on the couch, wondering when he'll return and whether she should read. Picking up a book called The Beginning of a Tragedy, she notices how out of place it fits with the office. In the story, a swordsman seeks a merchant who knows how to obtain a dragon's power. The knight promises to give him the dragon's body in exchange for information. The heroine expected romance, but it's just a dragon story. At that moment, someone comes up from behind and leans on her, and the girl screams. She says she was startled and asks why. The person apologizes. He then hugs her and asks her to wait a second. She asks if everything is okay, and after a moment he pulls away with a smile, telling her she's been great for waiting for him for so long, asking if she missed him a lot. He says that if she's finished, she can go home. She agrees but notices his hands, which used to be fine but are now all wounded, and wonders if it's really that bad. Sometime later, the lady comes to the guild again, hoping that everything will be all right today. She enters and greets him, but Evans immediately rushes to embrace her, happy that Shushu has finally arrived. The heroine thinks she knew it all along, and wonders if it will always be like this. Ever since the day his father, the guildmaster Lunasha, called him, he's always wanted to be near her, and constantly hugs her. This happens often, and the girl thinks that if it were Haley, she would have hit him already. Evans shouldn't be like this. She says they need to get to work, and he agrees. In moments like these, he seems like a normal teenager, which is exactly it. Evans invites her to settle in, and prepares everything she needs. When he picks up the papers, the lady looks at his cold face and realizes that he returned as if nothing had happened. But he still hasn't opened up. The girl thinks her suspicions might be correct. At that moment, she feels someone touching her hair and sees it's Evans. She asks what he's doing, and he says he's playing with them. Shirena wonders if he's really asking her, and if she can't get permission first. Then she thinks she should wait, because something's bothering him again. He looks worse than usual, and she asks why he's touching her hair. The guy is silent, then says it lifts his spirits. They feel nice to the touch, like dog fur. The heroine replies, yes indeed, and then begins shaking him, indignant at what he's saying. The young man explains it was a compliment, as her hair is soft and pleasant, like dog fur. Shirena says it all makes sense now, but it sounded rude before. The boy stops smiling and tells her not to worry. He promises it won't happen again. The lady asks if this is true, and he suggests conducting another secret investigation. If everything goes according to plan, they'll be able to finish the job. Sometime later, the girl stands in front of the mirror, remembering his words. This time, she needs to change her appearance beyond recognition and assume the form of a 9-year-old child. This requires powerful magic, so he gave her a magical stone. She holds it now and senses a vast supply of mana. The stone seems familiar to her. She looks at the earrings and realizes they too are imbued with magic. She once asked Corey about them, and he said it was a big secret. Shirena thinks about Corey. He's a genius after all, and it's no surprise he trades in magical stones. She wonders how he lives and suddenly realizes she's forgotten something important Evans asked for. She decides it doesn't matter. and begins her transformation so as not to be late. She needs to focus, imagine a new image, and apply the magic of transformation. But she realizes she's never imagined herself any other way and is afraid it will come out weird. When she's finished, she opens her eyes and looks in the mirror. The image turns out to be exactly as she imagined. This is how she looked in her past life, before all the troubles. She thinks it's unreal, but the main thing is to keep living. After a while, she remembers what she was so worried about. Today was supposed to be the food tour, the day they had agreed to go to the restaurant. She'd completely forgotten. She wondered what to do and decided to pretend to be a stranger and just let them know. She sees the two still chatting happily and realizes she needs to somehow tell them. But her voice is disguised, making it impossible to call, so she decides to take action herself, running up to them with an apology. She asks if they're waiting for Shusha's sister. One of the guys replies that yes, they were supposed to meet, but she didn't show up, and asks who the girl is. The heroine replies that her name is Yen, and that she works for Shusha. Haley looks at her and says the name is unusual, wondering if it's from the Eastern continent. The lady replies yes, and tells her sister won't be able to come. The prince says that if Shushu is offending her, he should say so directly, because she won't get away with exploiting child labor. The heroine, shocked, wonders what he's saying. Corey grabs his friend by the cloak and says that since Shushu hasn't come, they'll go alone, and asks Haley not to bully the little girl. He thanks the girl for the warning, and Haley turns around indignantly, asking who's bullying him. After that, he suggests they stop chatting and finally head to the end of the road. Ian says goodbye to them, then Corey pats the girl on the head and asks her not to get into trouble. Haley cries out, asking why Corey is stuck and urges him to go. The blonde adds that Yen should take care of herself, and that if she wants to play later, she should definitely contact him. Touching her face, the protagonist realizes that she was able to transform so easily thanks to her own magical power. But fooling the genius isn't so easy. The lady realizes now is no time to think. She's already late. She needs to turn into the third alley after the fifth block, but as soon as she enters one of the alleys, a man suddenly appears in front of her. He asks if she'd like to see something interesting. The protagonist clarifies what he's talking about, and the stranger declares that she's the chief agent of the Lunasha Guild. Sharina doesn't understand what he's talking about and wonders if Evie's plan has failed, even though this is her first time transforming into this form. So she doesn't understand how she could have been discovered. The girl decides it could be a coincidence and pretends he's mistaken for now. The little girl says she's just a girl running an errand for her father and asks why he's acting like this. But the man shouts angrily, ordering her to stop crying and tell the truth, as she is Shunibarin. The girl tearfully replies that if she's late, she'll be scolded, and begs him to let her go. He asks if it's true it wasn't her, and the girl confidently replies that it is. The man asks if she's Shushu with the curly red hair and if she made the healthy juice for her newly rich boss. When the man removes his hood, the main character wonders in surprise if it's Evans. The guy says that, as he thought, it's Shushu, but she looks completely different, which is why he doubted it. The main character is indignant that he wasn't sure, since he really scared her. Then the young man notices the shape of her eyes, which resembles the Eastern continent. He asks if she likes the way she looks, and the girl asks if she looks strange. She used transformation magic without really thinking, so it all happened spontaneously. The man replies that if the image appeared unconsciously, then it was pulled from memory. He asks if someone like that was ever important to her. She looks at her reflection in a puddle, considers a significant person, and replies, of course not. The guy looks at her silently, after which she suggests they get it over with. After some time, they arrive at the place, and the main character hurries him, because if he does not hurry before someone passes by, they will have problems. However, the young man asks them to wait. He needs to check something. After completing his inspection, he angrily says that there's nothing there again, and that he's been misinformed, claiming that the guild's documents will be there. The protagonist asks if he's referring to a specific document. Lunasha confirms his investment and asks why he needs it. The young man replies that this is an unusual investment and direct evidence of the guild's involvement in an underground business. The girl is dubious and asks why such a prominent figure as Lunasha would agree to such a thing. It's such a risky investment, given that if everything is discovered, Taggle faces a hefty fine. It's precisely because of the risk and the fact that the truth will eventually come out. The young man admits that he convinced his father to go through with the deal, as the expected profit was too tempting. His father had easily taken the bait. Now he eagerly awaits the moment when he'll see his face, realizing that this risk will drag him straight to hell. The protagonist thinks he's both laughing and angry, and realizes she wouldn't want him as an enemy. The lady asks why he's looking for such an important document here, and the guy explains that someone started digging under Lunash, and his father tried to hide the papers. The main character is surprised, finding it hard to believe. The young man replies that, fortunately, he knows where the necessary documents are. He reminds him that his father was recently furious and took his anger out on him. Afterward, he stole the papers and hid them first in the villa, then in the carriage, but now he can't find them. The main character asks what to do next. The boy suggests that their father hid them again because he doesn't trust anyone. As expected, the transformation magic worked perfectly, and now they can go to the villa. The young man kicks all the servants out of the carriage and orders Shushu to go inside and wait while he cleans up. The girl is surprised, right now really, and asks what he plans to do. The young man calmly replies that these people are destined to fall into eternal sleep under torture anyway, so he'll give them a lighter ending. The main character is shocked, and the guy tells her she doesn't need to watch, that she should hurry up and close the door. The girl realizes that he seems to live in another, very cruel world. He seems like a completely different person. The lady climbs into the carriage, covers her ears, and wonders how much red liquid has spilled since the very beginning. She wonders if it couldn't have all been done peacefully. After a while, they find themselves at a villa, and the girl looks at the scarecrows. She notes how eerie the atmosphere is here. Despite the fact that the head of the house has many carriages, they got inside too easily, which strikes her as odd. She asks if this is the same villa. The guy confirms that this is a villa intended only for his father. The protagonist asks what this means, and he warns her that staying here is dangerous and suggests they hurry. She understands that they should discuss everything, but he's clearly in no mood for conversation. The lady assumes he's just in a bad mood and agrees, asking if he knows where to look. Evans replies that the documents should be in the office in the basement, where the most valuable things are usually hidden. The protagonist asks, what if the papers have already been destroyed? He replies that no, otherwise the money spent will be lost. He needs to find the documents, hide them, and use them again so they can't be lost. The girl decides to trust him as a representative of the angels, but still doesn't understand why he doesn't tell her directly where they are. The villa seems extremely suspicious. There were numerous guards outside, but the inside was empty. Moreover, she doesn't understand why the villa is only for his father, and why he, as his right-hand man, has no access to it. As the lady is about to address the man, he suddenly stops, and she bumps into him from behind. The main character asks why he stopped, but he doesn't answer right away. He says it's not too late to leave, because if they go any lower, she'll see something she never wanted to see. If they're caught, the consequences will be dire. Shirena realizes that Evans truly cares for her. She punches him in the shoulder and says he's a professional, so why doesn't he just fight off anyone who shows up? He agrees and suggests they move on. As they descend, the protagonist realizes they've been walking for quite some time. It's quiet, but the atmosphere is oppressive, as if they're heading into the dungeon of the game's strongest boss. Suddenly she hears a growl and wonders if it's a monster. But when she turns around, she freezes in horror, unable to comprehend what the hell it is. Before her are children, her age, and some even younger. All of them are covered in scars, and their eyes are devoid of the will to live. The girl, horrified, thinks they were tortured. Shirena turns to Evans and asks what happened to those kids. The boy is silent for a moment, then sighs, and says that they are the top brass of Lunash, essentially the very center of the organization. Their main task is to prepare talented children for high-ranking positions. The main character anxiously asks if this is really what she thinks. The boy confirms that, yes, these children were brought from all over the country as candidates for the organization. The girl, shocked, asks who could raise children like this, since it looks like a prison. Evans explains that their methods are extremely perverse. Children undergo testing to join the organization, and the entire process is incredibly cruel. Testing is a battle of life, where these guys have to betray and plunge each other into eternal sleep until only 3 remain. The main character, shocked, wonders how anyone could treat innocent children like this. She realizes that if this is true, then perhaps Evans has gone through the same thing. The young man, with a slight smile, confirms that he grew up here, and Shirena says that smiling now is completely inappropriate. The boy admits it was terrible. The boss tortured them when he was angry, forcing them to eat poisoned food, and that's why he has trouble eating normally. But he survived, and has lived ever since with the thought that he will definitely take revenge. At this point, the main character covers his mouth and asks him to be quiet. She is angry about all this and does not understand why he speaks, as if what he experienced does not mean anything. The young man replies that he's simply afraid the lady will become afraid of him. The protagonist doesn't understand why. The guy explains that to get out of there, you need to become an absolute winner, accept the cursed mark, and join the organization. There's so much red liquid on his hands that she can hardly even imagine it. Despite this, the main character speaks confidently that he did all this against his will. It's terrible, because how can you force your own son to do something? To have gone through something like that, especially at such a young age, she doesn't understand how the earth can bear such cruel people. Now she clearly understands why he hates his father and tells him to never dare forgive him. She'll definitely help him. The guy smiles and says he now regrets bringing her here even more. The protagonist asks him what he means. He replies that something terrible could happen next, and he feels sick at the thought that the person who cares for him so much could be in danger.